On Rob Cesarino back with you with another Survivor 41 post-game interview. And we are so lucky today, so blessed to have here with us a woman who was at the center of it all through so much of Survivor 41. She was a phenomenon on everybody's mind through season 41. She's here to talk about her game. Please welcome the great Shantel Smith. Shan, how are you?
Good. I'm so good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be doing the deep dive with you, Rob. I've got my plaid on, so I'm ready.
Yes, it's so nice. Such a nice I don't see that. It's like black and orange and yellow. Very nice.
Yes.
What is your t-shirt?
It actually was, I got it at Abercrombie & Fitch, which I never shop in that store, but I happened to be walking by and they had this in the window and it was like, they're featuring like, black artists in there. And so I grabbed it. Yeah. It's just a woman with a lot of color on her shirt, a lot of color on her hair, and just rocking it out.
Okay, cool. Well, Shan, after Survivor, how's everything going in your world?
Everything's going great in my world. I am like, I'm happy that it's done. I'm happy that it's over in terms of like watching it, because it's hard to watch yourself on TV. But there's a part of me that's like, man, I think I might miss it in a few months. Like, just like once 42 airs, I'm like, thinking about 41. And so everything's good. I'm happy that it's over. It feels like everything's going to go back to normal, but I think I will miss it soon, probably. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, right? Because, I mean, that you go out there and you play a big game, and you're sort of like at the focus of everything, but then there's also a lot of scrutiny that comes along with that, and everybody is like second-guessing everything that happened, like on and off the show. So it's, but like, it's also like the kind of thing that you dream about being like at the center of everything.
Yes. I mean, yeah, for sure. It is this double-edged sword of like, man, like a ton of scrutiny, a ton of stuff that you're just not prepared for as a regular person that's not on TV regularly. And then your life goes to this kind of crazy space of being on television and, people talking about your game and talking about you and thinking that they know you. But then it's Survivor, and I've wanted to play, I've waited since the start of the process to the very end, like wanting to play and wanting to do well. And so it's a double-edged sword, but I'm here for it. I'm here for all the double edges.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what you sign up for with this whole process. Shanna, I would love to hear a little bit about, because I feel like that I don't think I know this about how you got involved with wanting to be a person on Survivor.
Yeah. I mean, I used to watch the show with my mom. And then, of course, I was taken away from her when I was really young, put in Child Protective Services. And the only channel that we got in our foster care home was the channel that Survivor aired on. I think it was Global TV. And so it just kind of became the show that I really got into. And a lot of the messages, I was going through a rough time when I was young. When I was a kid, I just had a rocky childhood. But the messages from the show, Jeff, saying to dig deep and there's more than you think, more in you than you think. And all that stuff just really stuck with me. I don't know why, but it just did. And so, I mean, for years, just playing I never thought about playing the game. I just thought about like just the messages from the game, and then my mom, after we had reconciled.
And they love that.
I know.
Yes.
They love that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then years later, like my mom and I reconciled, and we got really close the last few years before she passed, without knowing that she was going to pass, And so I was in town for her like treatments and stuff that she was doing. And, we're in the hospital, and she's like, do you still watch that show Survivor that we used to watch back in the day? And I said, yeah. And she said, you should just apply to get on the show. I said, Ma, they're not even picking Canadians. Like, there's no chance I'm going to be able to play. She's like, but you live in the US. She's Italian. She's not thinking, all that visa stuff. And she's like, I just don't understand. Just apply. And so I knew that they weren't really looking for Canadians. And then and then for whatever reason, I missed the time when they were. And then it was 2020 where one of my best friends was like, Shan, did you know Survivor is actually casting Canadians? And I was like, no, I had no clue. And so I applied. And yeah, that's kind of my story of how I got on. But it wasn't like this big dream from when I was younger. I really want to get on the show. I really want to play Survivor. It wasn't like that. It was it was my mom's voice in the back of my head, like, you should try applying. And the fact that they were then, interviewing Canadians. And so 2020, I submitted a video, and then I got called back, which was really kind of just threw me for like, what? They called me back? So then it became a big. Mm-hmm.
Shan, did you have any sort of like Survivor influences on you in terms of how you played? Because you were, so electric when you were out there. I was just wondering if that's the kind of thing where it just like all comes naturally for you, or if there was anybody that you were trying to model what you were doing after.
I really wasn't trying to model my game after anyone because I honestly didn't think I would do well in the game. I was kind of panicked. I was very shell shocked going into the game. But it went on the application. They ask you, who do you think you'll play like? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a little bit of Parv in me somewhere, that like devious.
I think so.
And then I think there's a little bit of Kim. I put a little bit of Kim because she's just
I see it.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I didn't write this down, but in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, I think I might be a little bit of a Tony too. So like,
okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wanted to be more of a Sandra, but it wasn't the case. So,
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that was so fun to watch you, and the thing that I was really amazed by, is that I feel like you had such a way with people where I feel like that if you wanted to, I felt like you could snap your fingers and charm anybody in the game. And I feel like that is like the elite, like a skill of survivors, that if you like draw a line between all of these great players that have it where they're, Suri and Parvati and Tyson and Kim, and that they have just this amazing like ability to charm. And I feel like that you have that, and it's the thing that you can't teach somebody, where there are people that they could play, 5 or 6 times and they're never going to get that, but that you have that ability. And I just think it's such an incredible skill. And no question. I just think that's such an amazing gift that you have.
Thank you. I mean, that's really kind of you to point out and to share. And I've heard that a few times. I think it's like the only tool that I had in my toolbox was like the ability to really work well with people and really understand people, just not because I went pastor. I mean, that's a part of it for sure. I mean, hear a lot of stories, meet a lot of people, but just my upbringing. I mean, I lived on the streets for a while. Like, you just get to know people. And so I guess, yeah, that was the only tool that I had in my toolbox, was just like, and my boyfriend would say to me, like, you get people though, and people really get you and they want to connect with you. And that's like, I think something that works in your favor. And so I didn't know what it was until watching it back, like, because there's no one giving confessionals in real life talking about, oh, my session with Shan as a pastor was great, or did it. Yeah, I mean, you hear feedback, but you don't get to see people talking on camera about how they experience you. So watching that on Survivor, hearing Brad talk about how he felt about me and Jeannie and JD and Ricard and, Liana and Tip, and Evie, like all those things, I hadn't heard it before like that. So I was just like, oh yeah, I guess I do have that ability,
yeah,
that gift or talent. I don't know what to call it.
Did you do anything in particular to prepare to go out for Survivor?
I tried to put on a bit of weight for sure. Yeah. Like, I was eating, I would wake up like at 3 o'clock in the morning every night and just have like a peanut butter sandwich with some almond milk and just try, and then I'd have pasta in the morning. I really tried to pack on some pounds, but it doesn't, for me, it doesn't stick. Nothing sticks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's another gift. Another superpower that you have.
Another superpower that I have.
Yes.
Right? That is,
yes.
Pounds don't stick. And then I did a lot of meditating, like really finding my center. But I wasn't going to do anything crazy like CrossFit, like, cause I was like, I'm gonna pull something or do something to my body and then I'll be injured before I even go out there. So I just like focused on just centering, remembering who I am. And I think that was pretty much it. And then just eating a lot of carbs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So once you get out to Fiji and you are ready to start off with the game, was there anybody that was like really caught your eye from the cast before you started to play?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly all the people that ended up on UA, like oddly, right? Like definitely when I first saw Ricard, for whatever reason, I was just drawn to him. I was like, I really want to work with him. And then I really thought Brad was just this interesting guy because he was so tall, and it was so hot in Fiji, and he always looked like he was sweating and exhausting, even in pregame, so it was like, I was really like just interested in who he was. And then JD, I'd see when we had the hour-long walks outside when we were during quarantine in Fiji, like it's like literally Orange is the New Black, like you get an hour of outside time and you're walking in this circle, and you're kind of looking at people trying to assess who they are. And Jeannie, honestly, the only person that I wasn't like instantly drawn to, though it came later, was Sarah, just because I don't know why, but I wasn't. But then I was happy that she was on my tribe. And so all the people, Jeannie, for just like, she just seemed, just so funny. Even in pregame, we couldn't talk, but just there were things about her. And then JD, and then Brad, and then Ricard. So for sure, those people was like, my eye was on them really early on. So.
Shan, did you find that your ability sort of like transcends words, where that people like were just sort of like beaming at you, and you were like shining back to them, where like this like pull really started before the game even began?
I think there were some, yes, I will say that, but I don't know. I mean, gosh. Yes, because Brad said to me on when we got to the beach, he said, Shan, I used to just see you smile at pregame, like at the place, not the Ponderosa, but the place where you were before. He's like, and I just was like, I want to meet that girl, And then JD was like, you're just such a beam of light. Every time I saw you, just felt like a beam of light to me. And then Ricard, obviously, I think he felt the same pull to me. And then Jeannie and we connected over my apple falling in one of the tents during like the pre-game interviews, and she like blows it and like rubs it on her shirt and gives it back to me, and she's like, I just felt like you're like a little princess, And so these I think that's a good question. Actually, there were a lot of those moments that I later, when I was in the game with them, first day meeting them, we all talked about like, oh, I thought you were this, I thought you were that. And so I think there was a pull even then, probably. I don't know why, but
that's really cool. When I spoke to Ricard, he mentioned that even at the airport, that he felt like, he saw you and felt like, okay, this is the person that I want to work with.
Yeah. I cannot tell you what it was, but that part is absolutely true. Like I think the morning I got there was a Starbucks downstairs in the hotel, and he was the first person I saw come out of the Starbucks. And I was going in, and I knew that he was a part of the crew because I had a feeling. And I saw him, and he just kind of, and it was just like this immediate, like, I really want to work with that guy. Then I saw him at the pregame spot, kind of the pregame Malolo, and, saw him there, and then walking in the circle. And so I just felt like, I really wanted to work with him. And I wish we had gone further in the game together, to be honest with you. But that was an instant connection.
Okay. Could we talk a little bit about the early days at UA, where ultimately that this is going to be a story of I guess not unlike the Titanic, but you set sail and you start off like great UA.
Yes. I mean, we start off really great. We get all of our paddles. We're in the water.
First place, we
unclip. I pull the flints. It's like this amazing moment. This is the first time all of our masks are off, and we're talking to each other and working together with these people that we literally just thrown into a tribe with out of nowhere. And it's just a high moment. It's a really high moment. So it was great.
Yeah.
And then it just felt like it was one thing after the next,
So ultimately, like, it's going to be a story that's going to end with just you and Ricard walking away from this train wreck. But in the beginning, I think you must have felt like that this is like really a great spot for you with all these different people that wanted to work with you. Did you have like a pecking order in your mind of like how the people that you wanted to go the furthest with?
No, I mean, I really didn't. I really thought like, I was like, okay, clearly blue is the bronze, right? Clearly they're the bronze here, hands down. They were just stacked. Like, it felt unfair. But I felt like green, they were the brains. I really felt like they were the brains. And so like, I was like, we unclipped our thing, and, we knew what we needed to do and pulled it together. And so I don't know, like, I never really anticipated that our tribe would become like a Matt Singh, or like that it would be eaten away like that. I just never anticipated that. So there was definitely not a pecking order. I just went with the cards that were dealt to me each day. Literally, that's how I operated. I really wasn't thinking, and then this person and this person and this person, until I was thinking that way. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Your game kind of forces you eventually, if you're the one, I think, driving things, which unfortunately that's the seat that I was in, like it does force you to kind of start thinking, okay, if it's this, then it's going to be this person. If it's that, then it's going to be that person. But initially, you know, I just felt really connected to Ricard, really connected to Jeannie and Brad and JD and Sarah. I felt it was like a family. It really felt like a family. And so I did not have a pecking order in my mind at all. No.
So early on that we got to hear about your evil little tune that you would sing to yourself as you went along. And that was, you know, from the first episode. And is that something that is like a part of your like everyday life from even before this? Or is that something that you were sort of like cooking up going to Survivor?
No. It's not at all something I was cooking up. My best friend, she's here. She's downstairs. I wish she could come up and just tell you. But like, I was wrapping up that first press in that first pregame press interview.
Yeah. And
of course, it's with Jolia, who's incredible. I just love him so much. And he asked me, I'm like getting up, ready to walk away from doing that interview. And he goes, "Hey, by the way, do you have any like weird quirks or anything that you kind of do?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Nothing." And I was like, "Well," I said, "there's this one thing." And and it's so odd because my best friend, when we got one person that we could talk to while we were on the quarantine in Fiji, and, you know, we had these little phones, and she's like, "Make sure you tell them about that thing that you do, you know, your humming thing." And I was like, "What humming thing?" And she's like, "You know, you kind of hum when you're like thinking, whenever you're playing like a board game and you're like up to evil, or like in life, you're like, when you're like really thinking about something, you hum." I was like, "I do not hum." She's like, "You do." So she starts humming it back to me. And I was like, "Oh my God, that sounds so familiar. I think I do hum." So I said to Joe, I said, "Yeah, my best friend tells me that I hum when I'm up to like kind of no good, or like when I'm really thinking hard about something." He's like, "Oh my gosh, you got to do it. You got to do it for me." And I was like, "No." And I like literally it was probably about 10 minutes of us going back and forth of like, I just really don't want to do this. Like, cause I just didn't. It's not, yeah, I knew. And I just like, this is going to be so embarrassing, like so embarrassing. And so I did it, and they captured the sound, and it was a thing all season long.
How surprised were you when you watched the first episode and they really like gave it like the musical score and it was such a big part of the episode?
I was like really freaked out about it because of course I know how the season ends. So I was like, oh my gosh, when are they going to play this? When are they not going to play it? You know, and all my family were like, "Whoa, that's so good. They gave you like a score." You know, everyone was really celebratory about it and liked it. I was really mortified. I was embarrassed by it. You know, I was like, "Oh, this is so geeky. Oh my gosh, this is so geeky and so quirky." And I'm so not a quirky person, but it is what it is, man. They got that sound and it'll never die. That thing will never die. So,
yeah. Shan, in the first episode also, you know, we start to get a lot of, JD goes to Shipwheel Island. And I would just love to hear you talk a little bit about your relationship with him, because it seemed like that, you had sort of like a big brother or a big sister, little brother relationship with him. And it felt like to me that you really wanted to make it work with JD, and that he just was unable to be worked with.
Yeah. See, so there was a few things going through my mind, but JD, he's just so lovable. He really is just so lovable. And he does impressions like you wouldn't believe. Like he's really, really good at doing impressions.
We heard.
Yes. So then and he's just kind of like this outstanding kid, and he's a super fan. But the thing about being a super fan is like, so much about the show. So he just would not stop talking about the game. He would not stop talking about former players. And it really just rubbed, I think, most people the wrong way. To me, it was kind of cool and kind of endearing. Like it didn't really bug me a lot. And so I really did want to protect him and keep him safe. And I wanted him to, I wanted to play with him. I really did. But JD, I think the bigger thing beyond just being a super fan was that a lot of people on the tribe felt like he was just really dishonest, and just couldn't really tell. And it starts from that time that he takes the trek. But even before that, he talked to us a lot about the fact that he was like this big athlete. And, there were some moments where it seemed like he wasn't a strong swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really show that on the show, but there were moments where, like, from the first day where we jump off the barge, where Brad has to go back and get him, and I have to go in and pull him out, and Jeannie has to pull him along in another challenge, and Ricard has to push him up on another thing, like where he looked like he was really struggling with swimming, but then he would the problem with that was that he would come back to camp and he would talk about how he's such a great swimmer and he's such a great athlete and he can swim. And I told him, just stop talking about it. Just don't keep bringing it up, you know? And he's like, you know, well, but water is the black man's kryptonite. I'm like, don't say that. Like, don't put stereotypes out there like that. Just don't talk about it, you know? And I was, you know, really educating him about the dangers of kind of like embracing stereotypes.
Yeah.
And how dangerous it is in the real world, but how incredibly dangerous it is in a game like Survivor to put those things out there, and also to be just caught lying about it, because people, you know, I said they're older. These are older people. You're younger here, like, so they're not stupid, you know. And just stop talking about it. But he wouldn't let it go, and so you know, I think everyone kept saying he has an advantage, and he constantly lies, you know, and he can't swim, and there were all these things against him. But I really liked JD, and I thought he was great up until the moment where I saw the advantage out of his pants, and I was like, you lied to me, dude. You lied to me. Like, I'm trying to keep you safe in this game, and you lied to me. And that's when I knew. I was like I'd love to have him as a number, but he's sloppy. That's how I felt. I was just like, you're sloppy. And then you need someone you could trust. And I felt like I was the person that he could trust, which I think I was. But again, you don't lie to the person that you can trust. In Survivor, you gotta work with somebody. You can't get ahead trying to be this showboaty kind of like, I'm gonna do my own thing and not tell anybody anything. It's like, you've got to cultivate trust, because, you know, trust begets trust. And so, of course, he gets caught with the advantage, and it's this whole thing. But I really like JD, and he definitely was my little brother. He's still upset with me to this day, but, you know, I'm always gonna love that kid, and I just have hope that one day he'll be okay with everything, and we'll be able to move on. But he's young, and I know it is to be young and to be upset, and it takes time, you know, to move past that kind of stuff. So it is okay.
Do you think that at some point down the road, and hopefully, you know, they, you know, don't lose his number, that do you think that he's somebody that with age, do you think could be a very dangerous player at the game?
You know,
as somebody who's worked with young people.
As somebody who's worked with young people, I think that if JD can get himself, you know, a good mentor and really just kind of just accept just who he is and be at peace with who he is, and just know that he's okay. You're okay. I mean, that's one of the biggest messages I wish I had received when I was younger. A lot of the times, just, you're okay. You're fine just as you are. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Just be yourself. People are going to love you. Just show up well, and people are going to love you, you know? And I feel like if he can just really embrace that and not have to feel like he has to work for people's approval or, you know, accolade, or feel like he has to be a Malcolm or be a Wu or fit into these other boxes, but just be himself. Be JD. You know, we want JD. That's why you got casted. You know, they want Shan, they want Ricard, they want G. They want the people that they casted, not people who want to be other people, shadows or carbon copies. You know, so I feel like if JD can just really hone in on the fact that he's wonderful as a young man and that he's got a lot to offer this world, and he doesn't have to showboat or pretend or play up anything, but I think that he'll really come into his own. I think he can be an amazing player, you know, really, really, really incredible player. Yeah, I have that. I think that for sure. I hope that we play again, and I hope he takes my advantage. I hope that for him. You know?
Yeah, the thing about like a Wu is that, you know, he doesn't try that hard to make you like him. He's just that he's just like a chill, like laid back guy, and he's likable on his own. And I think that JD has that so much, just that, you know, he doesn't need to do so much.
He doesn't have to do so much, and just yeah, like, and learn to. I think one of the hardest things for people, not just young people to do, is learn to let go. Learn to let go of things and learn to forgive. I think one of the faults in JD's like gameplay as well was like he really couldn't let go of, you know, the things that Ricard had said about him, or that Jeannie had said about him at times, or that Brad had said about him. Like, he was always looking for something, you know. And I would often tell him, just forgive and move forward. You know, it's a game, number one. And I think can really actually be a part of it. So I just, but I have high hopes for that kid. I believe he incredibly, you know, he's all the things, and I just got cut off.
Okay, you're back. You're good. You sound good now.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, Shan, can you tell me a little bit about why Sarah as the first person to go home out of UA? Was this the person that you had the because actually I was gonna say that you're the least close with, but you seemed close with her in the episode.
Yeah, actually, initially it was really like Sarah, myself, and Ricard. Initially, like we kind of, me and Ricard were always like, I think number one, number two, like right here, we were, you know, each other's number one, but Sarah was right in there. But there were just, I think there were things that Sarah said to me that just indicated that I probably couldn't trust her long term. And Sarah has a very sweet way about her where she'll cry and it will melt everybody's heart. And that's a dangerous player in the game. I'm a woman. That's a dangerous player in the game. And I could see that. And so, I overheard Brad saying, Sarah, she's crying. It's breaking my heart. And she cried enough that Jeannie was willing to tell her to play her shot in the dark. She's like, she just broke my heart. And I don't want anyone having that kind of emotional tug and power on other players in the game. So and then I was like, I know my skill set, and I don't want anyone else having even a little bit of that. So with Sarah, I just felt like in the game at that point, I really couldn't trust her. And honestly, it was either her or me. So there was no way out of that because we both did that. We both showed up to the puzzle, and I felt like people were, gonna either write down Sarah's names or Shan's name, even though I really said I did not want to do the puzzle, but I got asked to do the puzzle. So I did it. But I was like, at this point, I know Survivor. I know how this game goes. And, I know it comes down to sometimes whoever's just doing the challenge. And I was like, I just have to push for it to be Sarah, bottom line, because I can't go home. I am not going home first. I'm just not, so, I think we had more time together, it might've been different, but Sarah, she's smart. She's a smart player and she would have come for me. She would have saw my game and she would have come for me. So I give her that accolade and that credit for sure. Yeah.
Shan, did it bother you when Brad said the two people that he was looking at were Sarah and Shan to you?
Yeah. No, it didn't. It didn't bother me. I mean, I expected that. I was like, Shan, people are going to throw out your name and you're probably going to hear people throw out your name to your face. Do not react. Do not react. Like that is the perfect moment to then again pivot, right? I've been in lots of church meetings, church board meetings, and I've just heard crazy things. And it's like, do not overreact. Do not lose your SHIT. Just stay calm. Listen. And with Brad, I did. I stayed very calm. And after he said my name, Sarah went the other way with Ricard, and I went to the beach with Brad. And I talked with Brad, and I said, Brad, I want to work with you. I really want to work with you, and I will do whatever you want me to do. Who do you want it to be? Who do you want it to be? And I'll work with you. And I think that for him was like, no one had come to say that to him. And so again, that's another number, right? So it's like, it's just, you don't want to burn bridges and get more angry and give people more reason to vote you out, right? This is not smart gameplay. So, whether he was playing an old game or a new game, I wasn't gonna give him more reason to be a number for Sarah. So. Yeah, like it didn't bother me. I was just like, oh, okay, he's thinking me or Sarah. Well, I guess it's me or Sarah. Well, I got to go to work, kind of thing.
You said that also when you first saw Ricard, it was, you and Ricard, and you were always, 1 and 2 with Ricard. What was it about Ricard that made you feel like that this was the person out of anybody on UA that you most wanted to work with?
I've been asked that question so many times. And I really cannot put my finger on like what it was about Ricard other than I just kind of fell in love with the guy out there, like I just enjoyed him, and as a person hearing his story, I believed him. And I think also it was also that so many other people had had a lot of problems with Ricard, and like so many people that our tribe, right? And just didn't get along with him. And felt like he wasn't sincere. And I think in some ways he was a little bit of the underdog on our tribe, underdog in the sense of like, he just wasn't well liked. And those are the kind of people that I'm drawn to. Cause I just like, I never want anyone to feel like they're on the outs or excluded or any of that. So like, I just naturally was like, no, I'm gonna, and again, I think the same thing was with JD. People didn't really like him. So I was drawn to him and really wanted to pull him in and make him feel included because, there's some really beautiful times on the island. You're having fun, and to feel like you're on the outside of an amazing experience like this is total trash, so I just didn't want that for him. But then also Ricard and I, the first day we went to go collect firewood, and he tells me that, he's hard of hearing and he's got a disability. And I said, oh my gosh, me too. I don't have a disability, but I was like, I have chronic illness. I didn't think I'd meet anyone out here with like something like that. So I felt like I was the only one. So to hear that, shared experience and familiarity is so important and so invaluable in a game like Survivor. And like, we really just connected over that, just being like, I will listen for you. I will be your ears for you, and he's like, and I'll cover your back if you ever seem really fatigued or tired because of your MS. So we just had each other's back like that. And that was really strong connection.
Shan, we didn't learn about your MS until after the show had aired. You talked about it on social media. Was that a conscious decision that you made that I don't want to talk about this in the game?
I mean, it's so crazy because I talked about it in so many confessionals, but I think if I'm looking at it from production standpoint, I'm thinking that they probably were like, well, she didn't flare up. Nothing really happened. And in fact, in some of my confessionals, I was like, man, I kind of feel stronger than a lot of my tribe mates because it's just like, I feel like being surrounded by, I'm plant-based eater, I believe in lifestyle and wellness and all that and nutrition. And so just like, I know the profound effects that fasting can have on the body, giving your body more time to do other things as opposed to just eating a ton of food, processed foods. And I was surrounded by the water and the green and the sky, and all of that was really, honestly, really healing to my body, so much so that like, with my MS, my left arm flares up. That's where my symptoms are really, at least before I got treatment. So they've stopped all of that. But like sometimes when I am stressed out or really tired or something, it'll flare up here. But it felt like my arm had healed. It felt like really like I wasn't having any issues, and I still don't. So it's just, I mean, I remember sharing that. And so it's almost like Fiji was really good for my MS and really good to me. And so I don't think it fit into my character arc in that way. But I talked about it a lot because I was so amazed at how well I did in some of the challenges, and just like that I was still standing. And I mean, right before the game, I was terrified I was going to be evacuated, Rob. I thought I was going to be the first Canadian medevaced out of freaking Survivor. And I was so terrified about that.
No, it's not going to happen. Do you wish that they would have shown it in the episodes?
You know what? I had so much going on that, and then season 41, I had this Shantel going. I had pulling people's advantage. I had connecting with everyone and being a boss bitch at sometimes. Like I had all this. I was like, I don't need anything else. Like I'm fine. Like I don't need any more airtime. Like it's good. It's good. I wish they would have showed it on the going out credits. Like that closing interview. You voted out. Because I did mention it. Like I got to represent for MS and did that, but it didn't, and that's okay. But I was certainly going to talk about it after, because was my proudest thing was that I made it to this far with having MS, and I may have had some things been different, but yeah.
And did it impact you in any way? Because I know like in the post-merge game, I know you really start to like seemingly like I feel like you hit a wall with in terms of just like the amount of nutrition that you're getting. Was that in any way because of your illness?
I mean, I really think I want to say no, but I mean, how can I say that, right? Like, it's like I battle with fatigue, like that's a part of having MS, and I think I have a lot more energy than maybe some other MS warriors out there. It's a big spectrum of where you can be, and it hits people differently. That's why it's called the snowflake disease, because it's just so different and unique for every person. But I think it would be foolish for me to not think that me not having enough sleep and me feeling that stress of the game, that wasn't affecting me. And I think, definitely not having enough food, sure, for sure. I think it was starting to affect my game. Especially it's totally like a mind screw, like when you're like, oh, I brought this person along with me, and like he's eating at every challenge and every reward, and and I'm here like really struggling and haven't eaten in like 18 days. It's just, I think it did start to wear and tear on me a bit. And so I think if I ever played again, that would be something that I would be just way more cognizant of. It's just, wow, it really does start to take a toll on the mind, because your brain, I think, uses like 75% of your body's glucose every day. And I don't know if that's right. There's going to be some nerd medical person in the chat just trying to call me out on that.
Voce is here. Yes. Says it's actually 16.666%. Yeah.
Yeah, so
he works on the brain. Yeah,
right, it does. It works on the brain.
Yes.
It does.
Jan, let's talk a little bit about the time that you watched when Brad went to go spy on Ricard and JD. What were you thinking as that was unfolding?
Oh my gosh, you saw my reaction. I was like, because it was just, I didn't think Brad was that player up until that point. Brad was like laid out. He chilled. He was quiet. We talked a lot, but he felt very chill. Ricard and JD head off, and Brad jumps up and he sprints out of the camp. And I said, Jeannie, what's going on? Where'd he go? He's like, I think he's gone to go listen to him. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I thought in that moment, I was like, oh, Brad is like, he's like crazy. Like he's like a Tony Blatch. He would build a spy shack to listen to people. And I was like, oh my goodness. That's when I knew that Brad was a wild card for sure. I was like, he could do that. I was like, he could do that to me. I was like, I could be at the well having a conversation, like working my strategy over, and he could come and hear that. And I was like, nope. Brad's on my radar, So but he's an incredible player too. And I learned so much from him on that island. Yeah.
What did you learn from Brad?
I mean, I went out there thinking I knew how to do fire, thinking I knew how to do something. I'm a city kid. Like, what do I know about making fire and all that, right? But Brad taught me how to snorkel, how to fish. He taught me how to build fire. And I was the only, like, I was so upset they didn't show this, but there were so many times at the merge that they lost fire and I got fire back for us because it was just like, Brad was like, as long as there's a coal, as long as there's smoke, you've got fire. And he taught me how to blow, like, literally a little ember back into a whole fire to the point where people were like, I don't think it's going to light. And I was like, it's going to light. Just watch it. Just wait. And
watch
it was smoke. Right. It was like, I was like, this is the fire whisperer. And I'd like pack the things on just like how Brad taught me. And then I'd see the heat building, and then I would just stand and did honestly and just poof. I learned that from Brad. I felt like, yo, that's so crazy. Like, that's crazy dope, So Brad taught me so much out there. It was really like a father-daughter relationship out there, which is what I think made it sting even more for him. And like, but we were very connected, and we talked a lot about his family, his kids, and his, just his life. And so I learned a lot from Brad. Really, he was probably my favorite player. If watching the season, he's probably my favorite.
It's very fun, very fun. You talked a little bit about JD's reaction after the show. How did Brad react after being voted out? Have you had any conversations with Brad post Survivor?
Rob, nobody was talking to me. Like from UA, nobody was talking to me. It's like I had to meet with the psychologist and everybody one-on-one, and I still haven't met with Brad. So he's like, I think he's still, which it's like really emotional for me, like that whole thing, because I don't have a lot of relationships that are not intact. In my life, I work really hard to just build bridges and reconcile and all of that. But Brad and I haven't had that conversation. JD is still mad. Jeannie and I are good. Sarah and I are good. Ricard and I are good. Everybody else I'm good with, but it's just, I think it was just, it was. I think Brad took it hard and JD took it very, very hard.
Shan, that we started this podcast and I was talking about a double-edged sword, but I feel like that for you, it must also be a double-edged sword in that you have this great superpower, this gift where people feel a connection with you, and then you go out there, you play the game just like everybody else. And, if another player potentially is going to blindside somebody, it hits different when it's Shan blindsided me because I felt connected with her. I mean, but that's your gift. It must be, it's a blessing and a curse when you play Survivor.
Yeah, I think, this is what it was, Rob. I try to explain this. It's like the best players who play the game like who they are in real life on the game, right? Like I think in some ways. And I think I wanted to, it's hard for me to pretend with people and be fake. And so it's like all of those connections that I made while I was out there with Jeannie, with Brad, with JD, with Sarah, with Ricard, all of those connections were very real. It was all based on, real information. I was open. I was honest. I was authentic. I was showing up the way I would show up, meeting with a member at my church. That's how I was showing up. It's like when it came to gameplay, I was like, okay, I have to make these decisions now, and I have to strategize in this way. But I mean, I feel like, you don't take it as hard as someone as anyone else in the game because they're not maybe showing up as authentically because they're playing a game like Survivor. But for me, I brought that authenticity into the game. I was like, that's my, for lack of better words, that's a superpower that I bring. Is I want to be fully authentic with you, and I want to mirror what you're feeling because I want you to know that even in this space, I am still a pastor and I do feel that way, but I'm also playing a game. And so there are these moments where it's like, you want to be real, you want to be authentic. And then there's these other moments where you're like, you are playing a game. And so I don't know if I did that well. I don't know if I did that well, but I don't know that I would have gotten as far had I not played that way. And so it really was.
How could you play a different way? That's who you are.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for sure, it's like everyone's mad at me, and I'm like, but they helped blindside you too. I mean, they were voting against you too. They're not as mad at these other people, and I'm like, And they're like, but Shan, I felt like every single person I met with Liza, Dr. Liza, everybody was like, I just want to know what we had was real. I just want to make sure it was real. I just want to make sure it was authentic. Because I gave you my heart out there. Like, you call me your little brother. Like, you call me this. And I'm like, but I meant all of those things. I absolutely meant all of those things. And but I had to make this decision. I worked with information that, I had at the time. And so it totally is a double-edged sword. And it's a double standard in some ways, but, people's hearts are what they are.
Well, you make a good point, because I feel like that this is the same thing that we would talk about with the Survivor moms, and you're not a mom, but like when we talk about when we look at like the Survivor Karamoan, where it's like, okay, well, people looked at Cochran because Cochran like, okay, he got me, but Dawn, how could you? I opened up to you, Dawn, and it is a thing, and you had that conversation with Ricard about how men and women in the final tribal council. And, you made the point about how the jury is gonna sometimes, they're gonna give that to a man. And Ricard said, I don't think so, not this season. And ultimately, he did prove to be right. But who knows how that would have gone in the final tribal council?
Yeah, I mean, there was no way of telling. I mean, I'm working with the history of Survivor, and of course, this is a new era, new season. But it's like, I know that some of the old things can kind of some of the old tendencies can come back into play. I just know how this stuff works, and so. Yeah, I definitely feel like there is a little bit of a double standard for the moms, who play the game and you feel nurtured by them, but are also playing the game and are using the mom kind of card to play the game. And all I had was the pastor card, and I felt released by my senior pastor. He's like, go out there and you be pastor on that, that beach, and but you light them up as well, And so I was like, okay, and I couldn't see myself doing that. But then you get to a game and I'm like, oh, people really trust me. I don't know why, but okay.
Yeah. And we saw that trust that Brad had in you when he finds his beware advantage, and he comes to you and tells you that he has the advantage, and that you now know that he has lost his vote, and he's going to go try to get the idol with his broccoli phrase. Were you hoping that Brad would come back with an idol?
I mean, at that point, no, because he came to me earlier in the day and showed me that he found that piece of paper about with the idol, the 3-weight idol that was split. That was that same day. And then he also found that advantage. And in my head, all I'm thinking is
to go to the summit, right?
To go to the summit, right? So he got the summit advantage, and he also got the 3-weight, but it wasn't an activated idol yet, right? He had those two things. And I'm thinking, and now he's going to the summit, and I'm like, what is he going to get there? I don't know. I couldn't even imagine what he would find there because it's a new era. But I'm like, at that point, everyone, and I read the comments online, like, why did you throw away Brad? Like, he could have worked with you. But I'm like, that's way too much power in this man's hand. And I'm like, I want the idol. And the funny thing is that people kept looking all over for the idol, and I was like, it's in this one spot where the lizards are. And I was on that said to Brad, like, I think it's where these lizards are. And he came to me and he said, you're right, Shan. It was the area where the lizards were jumping. And I said, damn it, I was in that area searching, tearing that place up.
How did you know?
Okay, so I'm looking at the map, right? And the map literally, it circles through like a few forested areas, and it tells you where the water well is, where tree mail is, but it just goes through this little circle, and they highlight these bush kind of areas, not highlight, but you look like you're going through this forest. And I'm like, this is the map. It's got to be somewhere along this path. And then I'm like, you walk through that area, and as you're walking through it, you just hear lizards jumping through the dry palm leaves. And it just seems like, where an idol would be. And I remember I was searching for an idol that day, crazy. I was digging, and then the red ants were biting me, so I jumped out, and then they were like, people were calling me back from the camp, so I went back, and I'm sitting there, and then Brad and Jeannie go off, and Ricard and JD and I go off, and Ricard would say to me all the time, he's like, I don't know why I get called up for looking for an idol. I don't know why JD gets called. He's like, you were gone for like an hour and 45 minutes and no one called you. And I was like, I really don't know why. And then Brad goes and he finds it there. But the first thing he tells me, he's like, Shan, you were right on it. He goes, it was exactly where you said it would be. And I was like, damn it. So that was the moment for me where, he shares and I'm all excited with him. And I'm like, that's incredible. But in my mind, I'm thinking, no, Brad's got to go. He's got way, 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 way too much power. And I want to get rid of all of his stuff. And I was not completely certain that Brad would be locked in with me as a number 2. I just wasn't. I felt like he was a little closer to Jeannie at that point than he was with me.
But at the same time,
it turned out that wasn't the case. It turned out that he actually felt like I was his number 1. So, you know.
So You and Ua are going to go to Tribal, but before Tribal, this is when you are going to catch JD with the extra vote, and then you have to make a decision here about what you want to do. Did you come close to cutting JD loose at this point?
At this point, I didn't, because when he came back to, like, he shows me that, like, I see the advantage, and I actually see it way before I actually say what is that. But then I was like, now I'm gonna out him in front of everybody, because I knew something was up. So then I said, what is that? I pull it out. Of course, it's the advantage. At that point, the way JD came back to me and he was like, I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry. And he's like, I'll even be willing to give you this to hold on to it. Like all that. I was like, okay, he feels bad enough that I feel like he feels like he owes something to me now in the game that I can work with, because I feel like he's now knows he's in the, he's at the bottom. He feels desperate. That's potentially a number. So I was like, maybe I'll keep him around. And then, he and I have shared experiences with people of color. And I didn't want to vote him out. We always go first in games like this. And I was like, I didn't want to vote him out. So, at that point in the game, I really wasn't necessarily thinking I got to get rid of JD. Not yet, but my eye was on him. My eye was on him, and it didn't take much else for me to shift, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So Brad, that he's gonna go out here, and Jeannie is blindsided. Jeannie is not happy about all of this. Did you have to do damage control with Jeannie?
I spent so much time with Jeannie after that vote. After the Brad vote, I spent so much time with Jeannie, really talking to her and and listening to her. And that's what, she tells me she wants to get Ricard, and she wants to get Jade. And we're talking about all these things. And I kind of just wanted I kind of just wanted Jeannie at that point to make her feel like she was my number one, because I honestly really like Jeannie. And I never anticipated that she wouldn't be with me in the game this longer. So I really was trying to salvage things with Jeannie and really trying to repair it. But in the back of my mind, I was like, if I can't, then I might have to vote out Jeannie. But she seemed like she had come back together, and she's like, Shan, I really want to play with you. And so there was a lot of damage control. And I just remember spending a lot of time with her on the beach, and we took aqua dumps together, and we showered. I spent time bonding with Jeannie after that, because I wanted her to know I was with her, and I was so sorry about voting out Brad. But I also wanted to paint Brad as the enemy. When Brad was gone, I was like, Jeannie, Brad didn't tell you that he went off to the island. He told me that. And so that really messed with her, right? She was like, why wouldn't he tell me? It doesn't make any sense. And so that's when she realized, okay, maybe Shan is telling the truth, and maybe she was protecting me. And so I did have a lot of damage control to do that night. And Jeannie lost it. I mean, you guys saw a little bit. You saw a little bit of it, but Jeannie kicked rocks. I mean, she threw she was upset. I mean, that girl was upset. And that conversation went on late into the night. To the morning. I woke up and she was sitting on the log at the fire, and I just go and sit with her. I was like, Jeannie, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't tell you because I know you love Brad, but I wanted to wait till after to tell you this is why I made the move that I moved. She's like, but I feel like I look like an idiot. You guys blindsided me. I'm like, you don't look like an idiot. Trust me. Just trying to reassure her, but she was upset. Yeah, she was pretty upset. Not bad.
Okay. So ultimately, then after a visit from Nathan, that was a great day with Nathan.
That was a great day with Nathan. Probably one of the best days out there. I mean, we had fish. We actually ate fish. Nathan was incredible. I mean, talk about resourceful, and just his family grew up on the island, living kind of in the outs, in the cut like that, working the ground and eating off the land and fishing and all that. I mean, did you see the way that he climbed that tree? He climbed that tree, flipped over like a stripper. Jeannie was right, and then came straight down that thing. And Nathan he was a man, just a man out there, and it was it was great guy.
Interesting. Okay. Was there any chemistry between you and Nathan?
No, not at all. But just to see someone catch fish and provide for us, that did something for me out there. I was like, oh, thank you so much. This is so nice. He's a great guy. And yeah, just was really helpful. And honestly, a lot of his tips helped us survive. We were Rob, we were walking past coconuts they were old and they were dead, and we couldn't. We're like, there's no coconuts on the island. He's like, what? He picks up a coconut, gets the stick as uses it as a shiv, and splits it open. He's like, you eat this. He taught us to get the spongy coconut, the green coconut, the brown coconut. He taught us all the ways to open them easier. I mean, now mind you, some of the things that he did, we still couldn't do even after he taught us them, but it was great to hear it. And I mean, we won the fish too. We won Dory, so that was good.
Okay. So ultimately though, then in the immunity challenge, this is when JD was money, more like tribal, that he ultimately is going to be in trouble. And this is when you and Ricard are talking about, hey, maybe let's get the vote from JD and send him home.
Right. So the plan goes into so basically I go to Ricard, and at this point, you know, everyone was fed up with JD anyways. Like I knew he was going to be an easy vote no matter what. Jeannie wanted him gone. Ricard wanted him gone from forever, and I was just protecting JD. So because remember I think there was also a water component to that challenge as well, right? To run to the money one, where because you had to, I think we were jumping. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a water component to this, and Jeannie was like, I had to pull him in the water. It was so annoying. Like, he can't swim, and he keeps telling me he could swim. And I just kept telling him, JD, stop talking about this. You're putting it more on people's radar, you know, because he's like, I don't know why she's saying I can't swim. I can totally swim. Anyways, it is what it is. So I say to Ricard, I want to get out JD. And he goes, do you mean that? I go, I mean that with all my heart at this point. Because what people didn't see, it wasn't that I was just upset that with JD, you know, throwing, you know, and yelling money and doing his NBA layups with the finger toss. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? All that was upsetting, for sure. All that was upsetting.
Right.
More upsetting was I had just saved his behind from going home the night before. And he comes into camp and he's like, I would like my advantage back. And he like made a big deal about it. And I was like, okay, you can have it back. So I gave it back to him knowing that I was going to vote him out because I know it's not an idol. So the next time when I say to Ricard, yes, I want to get JD out, he's like ready. He's on board, 100% on board. Jeannie was on board. But then I was like, But I was like, before he goes, I said to myself, I think I could get that advantage back because I'd love an advantage in this game. So I go to Ricard and I say, Ricard, I got a plan. He's like, what's the plan? I'm like, I'm gonna say to JD, like, I don't trust you. I think you're gonna pull a blindside with Jeannie on me. I was like, would you be willing to let me hold on to the advantage? And I tell him it's non-transferable because I told him the other day it's non-transferable, so I'll hold on to it. It's not like I can use it. So then I'm like, but I knew it was transferable. So then I was like, I pitched that to JD. You know, we're sitting on the log and he gives it to me again, which I was like, oh my goodness, like he gave it to me a second time. And so, you know, that was the story with JD, basically. I mean, just
now,
crazy.
I feel like that when Ricard tells the story, I feel like that Ricard takes the ownership of the idea. It sounds like that you are saying it was your idea. Is this a point of contention with you and Ricard over whose idea was it to take the extra vote from JD?
I mean, it was 100% my idea. I can't even believe, like, you know, he said it in tribal council in front of Jeannie. You know, I feel like I come up with all the strategy and she does the closing, but it really wasn't like that. It really was, I was strategizing and then I was closing the deals. I was bouncing the ideas off of him. So we did, in that sense, we did a lot of strategizing together, but it really was hard for me in the game for me to hear him, you know, talk about that at tribal. But again, you know, I'm not trying to ruffle feathers either, right? So it's like, not until I have to, you know, but it was really hard for me to hear Ricard try and take credit for all of the strategy in the game that, you know, that basically I came up with. I really feel like it was 95% of me, and he kind of rode my coattails until he didn't anymore. But it is what it is, because he was my number two, and I you know, I'm big enough to, I'm comfortable enough to admit that, like, you know, you can't get anywhere in a game like Survivor without working with someone. So, you know, I did bounce a lot of my ideas off of him, but at the end of the day, they were still my ideas. And that was one of the big frustrating points, is like, if I go to the end with Ricard, he's going to try and like take credit for all of the stuff that I did. And I said that to him when I came back from one of my confessionals. I said, I feel like you're trying to take my game away from me because you keep claiming some of these things as your own, when it's like, you didn't grab the idol. You didn't come up with the idea to, you know, the only thing that Ricard came up with at one point was, he was like, we should fake idol Jeannie. And I said, that's really, I said, you want to fake idol her? I said, I'm not trying to humiliate Jeannie on TV. He's like, and so he wanted to work this plan where he got Jeannie to go open it and make her think that she had an idol because I had activated it and all this. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be a mean girl. I'm not doing that, you know? So that was his thing. And then I would say the Nasir split vote, you know, but we came up with that together. We had talked about something like that early on before even using the advantage in that way. So did Ricard come up with all the strategy? No, he did not. But, you know, if that's the tune he wants to sing, then he's going to sing that song, and that's going to be him. I got, you know, nothing but love for him, and I wish him the best. It's just that just wasn't the case. And I really was aware of that, just that is something that happens a lot to women in this game, is that the men will come and take really credit for a lot of the big moves that happen. And it just wasn't that way. You know, I say to him, I have a plan. This is what I want to do, you know, and then I go and I make it happen. And I said, I'm going to go grab, you know, I said, I want to go get the idol. I'm going to go get the idol. So I go pull the idol. I say, here, you hold this so that you can vote for me. All that's my thinking. You know what I mean? All of it to, you know, even us talking about down to 5, you know, the numbers and how it would all work out with the black lines. Like, there was so much strategizing that went on. And it's just hard to hear him say that, like, I was just the closer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. But even if I am just the closer, you know, it's like, you know, what good is strategy, and just what good is strategy if you can't pull it off, right? So that was hard for me, you know, just to hear that him to take credit for all of that when it wasn't the case, you know.
Well, I'm sure that this is all part of then when JD ultimately does go home, and then when you are going back to Tribal Council again about the discussion over who should get to hold the advantage going into the Tribal Council, where Jeannie ultimately is going to go home, because it sounds like that, you know, there is like a real difference of opinion between you and Ricard over like who is responsible for acquiring the extra vote.
Right. I don't think that the argument was who's really responsible for acquiring the vote, so much as the argument was, you know, he really felt like I was going to do to him what I had done to JD. And, you know, for me, that wasn't the case, but I also didn't want Ricard having that extra vote, because I know that he clamors for power. I know that he does. And so I just was like, you know, you said he would give it back, you know, but, you know, of course he would. If I was in Ricard's shoes, though, to be fair, I wouldn't have given it back. You know, not because I would have taken it to steal it to hold, like, and then never give it back, but I wouldn't have given it back that night, because I would have wanted the, you know, the guarantee that you want this. And so that's more certainty that you'll keep me, is because you know that I'll be leaving with this advantage. And I really I wasn't going to vote Ricard out, you know,
right.
But wanted it back because I had worked for it and I felt like it was rightfully mine. But you know, so that was the big debate. He's like, I feel like you're trying to do to me what you did to JD. And I could hear, like, as I was saying it, I was like, yeah, I get it. I get
it's true. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And so this was a moment where I got to prove trust to him. I was like, you know, and then we came back. I said, okay, so well, you feel like you can trust me now, right? I didn't vote you out. Like I gave you my word. He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, you know, and he was back down. Yeah, and his whole thing was, you know, I'll give it back, but you're making it a thing. I'm like, I'm not making it a thing. You said you would give it back, right? Like, yeah. And then at one point, I was gonna just let him keep it, but then, you know, I went on my walk, and then production did its thing, and then I come back, you know, because production's playing the game in their own way too. And so, you know, one of the producers says to me, like, that's so messed up that Ricard didn't get. Now, I didn't know this was a thing that would be happening on the island, but production says, it's so messed up that Ricard didn't give it back to you. Like, he said he would. Like, I think that's kind of unfair. And then I go back into the camera and I'm, give me back the advantage, you know? Like, so. Right. Yeah, but it wasn't Ricard's advantage. It was JD's advantage that I stole basically from him, you know? And I did the stealing. And so yeah, I don't know.
Right. Can I ask you, is there a way that he could have asked to hold it that would have been the right way to sort of unlock it for you, where you would have been more okay with it?
For sure. Like, if he had been like, you know, I want us to move together as a 2, and I really feel like, you know, you have the idol, it just got activated, and if we're moving together as a 2, like, is it okay if I just hold on to this, and like, you can, like, we give it to each other whenever we need it? Like, I think there would have been a better way to have that conversation, but, you know, I don't know that in Fiji at that moment. I don't know. It's so hard to say, because we're not eating, we're not sleeping. Like, was I more on edge? For sure, but I'm playing this game, and like, I'm seeing that the numbers on our tribe were dwindling down. I think for sure because remember that night when I come back, I'm saying remember as if you were there, sorry Rob, but like that, when we come back from tribal after Jeannie, we actually have a really long conversation that night. We're like laid in the bed, we're talking side to side, and it actually ends very well. It actually ends with me saying to him, Ricard, you know what? I want you to have the advantage. You hold on to it. It's not till that this next morning where I go on my walk and I do my confessional, that like kind of production kind of teases a little bit more out of me. And then I go back and I'm like, but Ricardo, you said you would give it back. Like, like, and that's kind of how it got stirred up a little bit more, I think. But I mean, I wanted to work with Ricard. I was never trying to snake him, so it's not like he had anything to worry about, which is why I was like, if you trust me, then give it back to me, but I get it. In his shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. So,
yeah. So was there ever a thought about, hey, maybe take Jeannie instead of Ricard when you are headed to that vote that's going to be just the three of you?
I thought about it, but Jeannie was just so honest and so open, and like people are like, was that your mistake in the game? I don't think that was my big mistake in the game. They're like, do you take the loyalist or the strategist? It's like, you take the loyalist, I get it. But Jeannie was so open and so honest that she would often tell people strategy, and she went to Sarah, and said, roll your shot in the dark. And that to me was one of the red flags with Jeannie, was that like, okay, no matter, and that's why I stopped talking a lot of strategy, that my actual strategy, what did I want to do with, because what I actually wanted to do in the game, because I realized that she would also share that. And if anyone cried in her face or sounded sad that, if I wanted to pull off a blind side, I'd have to be worried about, is Jeannie going to spill the beans, But and the other side of it is that, I wouldn't have to worry about her cutting my throat either, because I knew she would have been deathly loyal to me. Mm-hmm. But I just knew that with Ricard, there was like an ability for him and I to stand toe to toe, in terms of like just working together and talking things through. And like we moved very fast. With Jeannie, I had to like convince her, because she was like, I don't know if I feel like this is a smart, it was a lot longer of a process. And I just felt like she probably wasn't my right number two for my number one for this game. And so I thought about it, but no.
Okay. At this point though, before you're going to go to vote out Jeannie, you are going to go to the Shipwheel Island, and then you meet up with Liana, which ends up being, in hindsight, this is, a huge moment in the game where you meet up with Liana. And in talking with the people from Yasa, they felt like, okay, well, we're going to send Liana to go be sort of our emissary, to go let Ua know we're going to work together, and we got this whole plan, and we're going to take out Luvu. But ultimately, that's not what happens, because you and Liana end up hitting it off on a level that nobody, would have predicted. I had always wondered, did you and Liana sort of, in the way that you made connections with people like pregame, that you felt good about, was there also like that like connection that you felt like a pull to Liana as well?
It's interesting. Okay, so like a couple of things, like you know how you mentioned before, like having this kind of connect, like this ability to kind of magnetically pull people, right? It's so interesting because Yasa told Liana to give me the advantage at Shipwreck Island, right? They're like, go there, make sure Shan's safe, give her the advantage, which is just so odd to me because they're on the other side and we've not even talked yet, right? So it's like, what was going on there? But that just kind of made me think about that a little bit, because I'm like, just in this moment, I'm like, why did they do that? But anyways, I see Liana, at Shipwreck Island, and of course it's this instant like connection, and there's reasons for that, right? There's shared experience, but I think even at Ponderosa pre-game, there were just moments where we kind of bumped into each other that that are inevitable. And that's why the handlers are very, 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 very much watching you and telling you, don't talk, don't speak, don't interact, because it's all considered gameplay. And in some ways it's hard to avoid that because you're people, you see people, there's energy, there's, things that are unavoidably going to happen. Right. And so, Liana was just someone I really wanted to meet for a long, long time. And we kept seeing each other, and I was so bummed that she wasn't on my tribe. But even when we're on the boats going to the actual boat to meet Jeff, like I see Liana on the other boat, and she's just like, and I'm like, hey, because we're not on the same thing, but like, I see you, girl, kind of thing. Because it's so like, Rob, I can't explain. I know, like, you see white men everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like a novelty to you. Like,
no.
It's not. But in a predominantly white space, like reality TV, you see another Black woman, who's, kind of, and you light up because it's like, oh my gosh, there's another me. I see her and I see her, I see me and she sees herself. You know what I mean? Because there's so much shared experience. There's so much emotion. There's so much history emotionally in terms of, just culture. And, is a part of you that's like, okay, I feel a little bit more safe because I'm not alone in this experience. I'm not alone here. And so when I saw Liana, that's absolutely how I felt. And then to get to go on the trek with her, I was like, oh, this is about to be so much Black girl magic. I can feel it in my bones. And we get to the island and we hit it off, completely hit it off. So like, I think the other thing is that in reality TV, you often see like if there is more than one Black woman on like an island or in a house, like talking Big Brother or whatever, they're often pitted against each other, and it's often like this like aggressive energy and like, or this like they play up a certain, character trait that I feel like could be very plays into a lot of stereotypes, but what I loved about season 41 was that they really showed just the sisterhood between Liana and I, and kind of just how both of us were really strategizing and thinking. And at one point at the merge, we're running the game together. And I was just really, I loved playing with her. She's like, she's a beautiful spirit inside and out. And it was just awesome to have that moment with her. And I think production did a really good job telling our story. And it's all accurate. It all feels very accurate. I mean, when I cried, she cried. When she cried, I cried. When I was flipping tables, she was flipping tables, and so, that was my girl out there. I loved her, very much so.
When you two talked at the Shipwheel Island, did you feel like that you had a plan of what was going to come next after that? Or was it just like, hey, I've got your back, you've got my back, and let's see where we go?
At this point in the game, I think I was feeling a little bit more confident, like in my gameplay. At this point, I was like, okay, I know I have the relationships. Like I have the relational stock with Jeannie. I have the relational stock with Ricard. And I knew I wanted to make like a really strong connection, cross tribes with Liana. So it's like, okay, I don't need another advantage right now because that's just going to put more heat on me because I don't want to have to lie to Ricard. Then he finds out, then it's drama. I just didn't want any of that. I was like, right. It's fine. Now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have taken that freaking advantage, but it is what it is. So I'm like, I want to create trust with Liana. I know that we have shared experience. I know we just cried about our moms, all of that, but I want to give her something as well so she can go back and be safe because I know she's the only person of color on her tribe left. So I'm like, you know what, let me give her something that she can have in her pocket. She told me her story with Xander and I knew that he had the idol at that point. And I was like, you know what? I want to give her something, just that she has in her pocket just in case anything happens. And I said to her, I'll see you on the other side. But if you don't, know that Ricard flipped and that you can't trust him, you need to take him out in the merge. And she's like, okay, bet. So, I knew that going into the merge, I was expecting at this point, I'm going to make it to the merge because I just knew the lineup of how things kind of would just shake out. Going back, we had lost, but I knew that there was no way Jeannie was working with Ricard. She didn't like him. And I knew that Ricard was never going to take Jeannie because Ricard is he wants to play with a certain caliber of player. Like that's who he is. He's just very much like, I want to look a certain way and feel a certain way. And he didn't feel like he could do that with Jeannie. So I knew that it was me going back that would have the swing vote, but in Survivor, you never want to get too comfortable. So I was going back still wanting to pitch myself to Jeannie and pitch myself to Ricard. But meeting Liana, I was like, here's the advantage, take it. I'll see you on the other side. At that point, I thought her ties with Tiffany and Evie were still good, but I knew she had beef with Xander. So I gave her the advantage. And it worked. She felt like she could trust me at that point, and genuine trust is really hard to come by in a game like Survivor. And so that was just, at that point I was like, I think I was now like owning my gameplay and leaning into it more and strategizing a little bit more like intentionally.
But Shan, I never thought about this until now, but how does this game change if you end up with the knowledge is power advantage instead of Liana?
I think and that's the moment that people are like, well, what was your big downfall? Was it taking Ricard over Jeannie? Wasn't that? It was that moment I gave up the advantage. And it's so funny because Ryan says to me in the interview, doing the confessionals, one of the producers say to me, but you gave up an advantage? And I was like, and I'm thinking, yeah, but genuine trust, like da-da-da-da. But in hindsight, I should have kept that advantage because I wouldn't have told a single person, but that's how I was thinking is I didn't want the heat on my back having another thing in my pocket. But I was like, I wouldn't have told a single person that I had that advantage. And I would have taken Xander's idol and I would have voted him out a lot sooner. You know what I mean? I would have just secured my spot a little bit more. And I think I would have ran the freaking merge in a whole other way. And I I don't know what I was thinking, except I just, was blindsided by my love for this girl. But that if the game, like, I mean, I definitely would have taken, Xander's idol. I wouldn't have taken Nasir's. I would have worked harder to pull Nasir in, although there was drama between Danny and
right.
Deshaun.
Well, if we could just talk it through for a second. So then ultimately okay, so at the merge, then Evie is going to go home. Evie is going to go home on that vote, because then you're going to take Xander's idol. And then what I'm just trying to talk it through. Then would Evie still have gone home, because ultimately the votes would that have changed the vote?
So
would Sydney still have gone home even if you took the idol away from Xander?
I would have taken Xander's idol away, and I would have voted out Xander that night.
But he was not
right. We had turn back time. Sorry.
Yes.
The turn back time would have happened. So then Evie would have gone home. I think Evie would have gone home, but then I would have been after Sydney right after that. I would have been okay with either Sydney or Evie going home at that point.
Because you wouldn't have had to split the votes. Okay, got it.
Exactly. But oddly enough, and this doesn't get shared enough, Danny, the whole idea was very similar to the cookout, but nobody talks about this. But I said to Danny, Danny, I have my personal card. You have Sydney. Donna has me. I was like, Sean, Heather, because he said that Mama. Oh my gosh, sorry. Am I still there?
Still that's here. It'll come back. You're just this is very important, and so if you could just start that once we get the connection straightened out. I want to make sure that we get this clean.
Sure.
Okay.
Right. So this doesn't get talked about a lot, because the cookout, the whole idea of the cookout and Tiffany's strategy. This is the reason why I feel a lot like I was the Tiffany on Survivor this season.
Also for anybody who doesn't follow the Big Brother, Tiffany, Big Brother 23, not Tiffany Seeley.
Yeah, not Tiffany Seeley, but Tiffany Big Brother 23, right?
Yes, Tiffany Mitchell. Yeah. Right.
So I feel like there were types cast on both shows this year, and Jesse Tenenbaum is a genius. Shout out to him. He's a benevolent god. But so that I say, sorry, go ahead. You want to say something?
No, I was going to say 100% approval rating for Jesse Tenenbaum.
Same. So I say to Danny, and this doesn't get shared enough because Big Brother, obviously it airs first, but Survivor shot first, right? It filmed first. And so that actually happened in the universe, whatever, before Big Brother did. And so I say to Danny, I said, I have, the strategy of the cookout was very similar to that of the camp out, for lack of better words. And I say to Danny, which is the All Black Alliance in Survivor 41. And I say to Danny, you have your person, Sid. I have my person, Ricard. Liana has her person, Evie, and Sean has his person, Heather, because he kept calling her Mama H. So those we were all close. I was like, so basically, all we have to do is keep our people close, and then just kind of go down the list. And we just talked about that as being strategy, but we didn't push it as much as I think the cookout did. It wasn't as marketed as their strategy.
Right.
That's fine.
And the plan, I think, is easier to pull off on Big Brother as opposed to what you were doing, because there's so many variables that you cannot predict in Survivor. Whereas on Big Brother, 2 people are going to go up on the block every single week, and so in that case, they had so many fail safes where it's like, okay, even if we don't win HOH, we still have the ability to control the vote. Whereas on Survivor, one person can play a magic power, and the whole thing could fall apart.
Yes, and exactly, you're exactly right. That's exactly what I was gonna say. But it's very different the way that it plays out. And so I was just keeping a running tally in my mind at all times about who had what, because there were so many advantages floating around. But yeah, I mean, if I had that knowledge is power advantage, Xander would have. It would have been a very different game. But who knows? I might have become more of a target. But then I had the idol. That counts. That gets me further. And then I had the extra vote. So my pockets would have been stacked in a whole different way.
Yeah.
And
because Xander could go home at the vote where Evie goes home, and then Xander could go home to the vote after that where Tiffany went home, and then Xander's going to be a vote along with the other group that's going to ultimately went on the vote that you go home. So it definitely changes the entire season.
Yes, it for sure does. It for sure does. So that when people ask me, they always ask, was this the moment? And I've always waited for somebody to ask me, but it's like, no, it was this knowledge is power thing, yeah. But it is what it is. I try not to think about it too much because it messes with my head. That is the moment that messes with my head. That's the moment that keeps me up at night. Is like, okay. Ah, man, that was a missed opportunity. And now I know, like, for anybody that goes on Survivor, I always, like, people that are like on Cameo, like, what should I do? I'm like, that is your game. Do not give anything up. As do not give anything away. Play your game. This is your game, you know? But that was, I think, a fumble for me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that was, I think the lesson of the season all the way around. It was like, don't give away your things.
And no one, to be clear with you, Rob, the only reason they knew I had the idol and the advantage is because it all came out so publicly.
Right.
And then Jeannie comes running through I find the idol. It's all very public. But had I got that knowledge is power, it would have been a very different game, because I would have definitely locked in, I think, Tiffany and Liana with me. We would have definitely voted out, Sid would have gone. She was just a target. Erica would have been gone. Like, it would just would have different game. I would have used that advantage. And we burned so many advantages trying to keep Deshaun in the game. And just, I can't even. That's the moment that I go back to where it all crumbles in my mind.
Well, we could talk about something else. You brought up Big Brother, and I've always wanted to ask you about this, about how did you feel ultimately seeing then the cookout in a different show, in a different game, ultimately complete the mission that you and the other Black players in this season had took on in Survivor 41?
Yeah, I think, it was a celebratory moment for me, for sure, because I watched Big Brother and I was like, and that show I feel like is toxic. Like, I've watched I watched the live feeds and the stuff that I've heard, like watching live feeds, and of course that are played back on YouTube. And to me, Survivor's the cleaner show, in my opinion. Not that there's not racism and isms and sexisms and all this stuff, because we know Survivor's not as tidy. It's just reality TV. People are messy.
Yeah.
As people. Yeah. But they're both great shows. But I don't think I'm a Big Brother player. I couldn't be in that house. But so it was really, really moving for me to see just how well that strategy was executed, and to see that they were there, like it was a final. Everyone in the final were like, they were all people of color. It was like, it was really, really beautiful to see the final six, all Black people in a year where, Black people were just at the bottom. We were marching, we were risking our lives in COVID just to be out there in the streets to say Black Lives Matter and to say the names of those that we've lost. Like, it was just such a beautiful moment. And it was hard too, because I knew where Survivor was going, and I knew how Survivor ended. And how essentially our whole alliance just flips on each other. Well, not each other, but people in our alliance flip, and our whole thing gets cannibalized. And it felt like I had worked so hard for nothing. And it was hard. It was really frustrating. And I saw myself a lot in Tiffany watching the show. Like, it was really, really, really like, just like, and I saw who the Big D was, and I saw who the Chata was, and I saw who I was like, oh, this is just so familiar, and it's like too soon, but it was also very celebratory. So I congratulate them, and I love them, got so much love for them. And we learned a lot, one victory, one lesson. So, Big Brother was the victory and Survivor was the lesson. And I hope they get it right in 42. I hope it's a great season in 42. I just hope the bigger thing is, like, can we work together, so, a lot to learn there, but yeah.
Shan, I had seen that you had been able to connect with Tiffany Mitchell at a point following Big Brother. What did you and she talk about, if you don't mind me asking?
So, like, Tiffany Mitchell from Big Brother, right? Big Brother.
Correct.
Okay, right. So, Tiffany and I, like, she followed me when my season jumped on. I had already been following her. And it was like just a meeting of the minds, and we hadn't messaged each other, but I had heard what she was saying about me through different people that I was around, the watch parties that we're not supposed to be at, but like, you're kind of there, you're in the mix, and so I heard people saying that, Tiffany just loves you, she wants to meet you so much. I'm like, Tiffany wants to meet me? Like, that's so crazy, because I'd watched her all season and just was like, yeah, all right, like, I get this chick, like, all right, she's so badass. And then, like, she, myself, Chata, and Liana, we went live one night. I think it was New Year's night. We went live New Year's night before the ball drops, for New Year's hits. And it was just, for her and I, it was just so strange. It was just big sister energy, and then Liana and Chata just little sister energy. And it was just this crazy little just really beautiful black girl magic bubble. And Tiffany and I just, it's like we saw each other in a different way. And in our DMs, I think it's just like, I'm so sorry for what happened to you. And she's like, I'm so sorry for what happened to you, because, you know, as Black women, like in every way in society, at least, you know, North America, I mean, but in the world, it's just like we're at the bottom of the totem pole, whether it's standards of beauty and career and fashion and or reality TV or, you know, corporate America. Like we just, like, we're always dragged, we're always left behind. And I remember seeing that so clearly during the pandemic and like the social justice marches and the movements, and just seeing the disparity between the George Floyd crowds and the Breonna Taylor crowd, you know, like that was just so, it just remember hitting me like that, just like we're always left behind, you know, but we always fight for Black men. And I felt like that was like Tiffany's story and that was my story. And we both didn't see it coming. So to be able to say like, I'm sorry and I see you and I love you and like I will forever support you and stand behind you, is just like, it's just so valuable, such a beautiful moment. And I think I won, you know, there can only be $1 million winner, but I think I won this season in a whole bunch of other different ways. And I hope I hope my other castmates feel that way about themselves and their journey too. But I definitely feel like I got wins, you know?
Yeah. I mean, how meaningful was it for you that both you and Tiffany were both sort of the person that really like captured like the hearts and minds of so much of the viewership, and a lot of the season is both of your seasons respectively is seen as sort of your story.
Yeah. And it's like that, like, yeah, that to me was so moving too, is that like to have like two women of color on the screen, you know, back to back, like, you know, two right arm, left arm Survivor, Big Brother kind of thing, you know, and like she's running the show on her season and I'm kind of running the show on my season. Although I don't mean that I'm running the show in that way. I just mean like, you know, in terms of like character and like who you know, just
so much of the focus of the story was really, you know, through, you know, like, okay, Shan is running the show, and who's going to stop Shan? And I think that a lot of the Big Brother story is, you know, Tiffany has assembled this group, and, you know, is anybody going to be able to ultimately, you know, slow down Tiffany?
Yeah, and to play this year, to play together, you know, on different shows, and to see it dominating in that way is like, I'm speechless. I have no, I'm just so grateful. Like it was lightning in a bottle. I hope it, you know, we see it again, but like, it was just an honor. It's just an honor to stand across from her in that way, you know? So like, yeah, it was very meaningful. Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I wish we had different ends, you know, it's bittersweet, but you know, we got a lot of airtime between the two of us, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think like, you know, the 10% of like not so good criticism, it sounds so loud, but I really felt like there was 90% of like the fandom. Like I really felt a lot of support, you know, and we can focus on the negative, but like, I think Tiffany felt loved. And at the end of the day, I really felt loved too. And just to see that there was a little bit of a changing of the tides in terms of the fandom, the fan response, like that was really encouraging as well too. So yeah, it's good. It's good.
I want to go back to talking about the Survivor game, and at the merge, of course, you know, the quote unquote merge, you were part of the group that ultimately lost the challenge to get your buff to go to the merge. But ultimately, when Erica turned back time, then you were safe. And I know a lot of your castmates were very unhappy with how that played out. But as a person who earned safety, did you have any complaints in the real time that was the way that it worked out?
I mean, in real time, like for sure, like I think I was grateful that Erica gave us safety and immunity that night. Because let me tell you, them heads came back to camp after they ate the merge and they were celebrating. They had their merge bus. They felt like kings. Like they were just, their bellies were full. They were laying back on the beach, chilling. And then the next day, the tide turned completely. And I was just like, had my little merge buff on and, you know, felt good about it.
Yes.
You know, you don't have to rub it in their face. At that point, it's in their faces, you know, that they have to compete. And they were all like, good luck. We hope you do well today. And then they had to compete, you know. And so it was just it was so interesting. And I think Sydney's right that challenge was meant to get out a big physical threat. But, you know, I felt pretty good about Erica's hookup. She definitely hooked us all up. But in hindsight, I wish I didn't have safety, and I wish we would have voted Erica out that night because she ends up taking the season. So, it's like, I think I would have been safe that night had I even not had, and I was thinking I might play my idol because I was so scared. And Xander was like, I might play my idol too. We were both so scared, but ultimately, and we weren't sure, was everybody going to be voting, or just the people that weren't safe going to be voting? Like, we just weren't sure. So, I was definitely grateful for Erica, but in hindsight, I wish it had just stayed the same, because it did. Honestly, Rob, I think it was poor optics and poor, like, I don't know, just judgment to, like, the year that this show goes 50% BIPOC is when the rules just change completely in the game. And that just feels so messy and so, like, unfair, that we were just working with a totally different, like, landscape of rules and, like, changes. And it didn't feel like a twist. It felt like we got lied to, so even though I was on the receiving end of it, like, what decided to, it still didn't feel good. Because here's the thing.
Yeah, you're good. That even though you were on the receiving end of it,
because even though I was on the receiving end of, like, I was a beneficiary of, like, her choice, it felt like we were lied to, and we didn't get to eat. So it's not like she turned back time and they brought us food, like, so it still felt like we were still, if you're going to turn back time, then turn it all the way back and actually give us what, the other side got. But it wasn't like that. And I even asked him, I was like, do we get sandwiches? Do we get food? And he was like, no food. And I was like, he's like, you get immunity. I was like, what is this? Like, and they didn't air it, but Danny and Jeff got into it, quite a bit at Tribal. So that
the stories are legendary. Yes. Yes. So at this point, this is when we first see you and Liana talk with Danny and Deshawn about the formation of the Black Alliance. Was that something that was sort of like, was everybody just sort of like thinking the same thing when the four of you got together? Or was that something that was like more of like a slowly, like a developing idea?
Like, when Liana and I saw each other at Shipwreck Island, we had talked about it. I said, Liana, I would really like to create an all-Black alliance, like, with me, Danny, you, Deshawn. Like, how do you feel that? She's like, yes, 100%. It's understood. So we talked about that. I was like, well, let them bring it to us. And sure enough, we get to the beach and they pull us aside and they're like, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. They're like, we want to do it for the culture. We want to do it for the people. So of course, me and Liana are like, yeah, bet, we're about it. We want to lock in. And so at that point, the game really did change, because when I first got back to the camp, I was still very much like, we are going to eat UA. I mean, we're going to eat, sorry. I was still very much like, we were going to eat.
Yeah.
Because I was like, UA and Yas are going to come together. They're going to make lime because they're yellow and we're green. And that's what the thing. We're like, we're going to be lime out there. And we are going to destroy Luvu. But then, and that's ultimately why I said in front of Tiffany, I was like, so what, like, what did you get? And Tiffany, that's the moment where it all slips. That's the knowledge of power. That's where it slips. But Liana never told me. And I love her. I love her so much. But I do not remember Liana telling me, me and Tiffany are not good, because we were also thinking, if this Black Alliance doesn't work out, then Ua and Yasa needs to come together and just eat up Lugu because they've got way too much power. They're way too stacked, right? But, that whole thing happens where the knowledge of power thing gets out. Tiffany loses it, tells Evie, it all just spreads. Liana lets them read it. Like, it just, it gets out of hand. And then, that's when we really decide, well, we should probably just lock in as an all-Black alliance then at this point, so they come to us and say that, and we're all obviously hands-on. And so, but I think, it's like, as people of color, like, given the year that we have, I don't think this is always the case, but the mix that was on that beach in 2020 was that, like, in 2021, was that we wanted to work together. We wanted to work together no matter what. Yeah.
Did you get a sense at all that the plan to take Xander's advantage could be going sideways before the tribal council?
It's like, I had done so much checking. I said to Xander, let me see your idol, because I want to make sure it's an idol. I see it, he shows it to me. We match it. And I'm like, maybe we should still work together with Yasa at this point. And I went and told Ricard that, and Ricard was like, I think we should stick with what we've got. And I was like, okay, whatever, fine, I guess it's not happening. So I see that Xander, he puts it in his waistband, his pants. And that's the last time I saw Xander. I don't know when he passed it. I don't know when he passed it to Tiffany or Evie. I don't know when that went down, But I do know that when I was sitting at tribal council, it's like me sitting here, Liana, and someone else, and then Xander, or Xander might have been beside her. And I remember when he pulled it out, I said, wait. Because I was like, it really did not look like the idol. But I wasn't certain enough to speak up about it clearly. And then Liana asked her question. So I definitely thought there was a possibility that it could get passed, but I didn't know that Liana had showed the paper to Evie and Tiffany to read. I didn't know they had that much detail. They had that much information to work with. I just didn't. You know, yeah. I just didn't know that much information. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. We don't have to talk about that anymore. No, that happens. That happened. That was a thing. Okay.
I didn't know.
We didn't know. Okay. But ultimately, you know, Sydney goes home. Not the worst case scenario, because I think that ultimately it's going to make Danny and Deshaun feel like they have less options outside of working with the Black Alliance. So ultimately, you still have numbers. Everything is still fine.
Yep.
Okay. And Yasa is going to just completely self-destruct.
It didn't make any sense. Like, Xander, why? Like, I kept saying, guys, they are working together. There's no way after pulling a big move like that they would really be splintered. It wasn't till the end of that second day in the merge that I was like, you know, maybe they're really not good, because Evie did get caught for, you know, spilling the beans about Xander's idol. But Xander took that to heart, and he really was not talking to them. Like, which I don't think was the best thing for his game, but he really was upset with Tiffany, which didn't make any sense. But he was really upset with Evie. And but at that point, you got to let that go and try and recoup and try and get those numbers back. But they eat each other. They eat each other at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so here you are. And I really feel like that this is a point where you came into the merge. It was just two of you. It was just you and Ricard. But I think here you are I guess this is the final 11. And seemingly you are at the height of your power. That there's a tribe of 11. You came in with just Ricard. And now you are seemingly the person who is running the show.
Yeah, seemingly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you have all this power, but also then at the same time, people are watching the show and say, "Oh, Shan is getting messy at this point." Do you feel like is that unfair that people are criticizing how this vote split is going to come, and ultimately this is when Heather's going to come to play the live the live tribal is going to happen at this vote. Yeah, what were you feeling in the moment here? Did you feel like that you are in control?
You mean when I was going home, the day I was going home?
No, this is before. This is the final this is the final 11 before we get there, where really that Evie's clearly the person who's going to be going home, and everybody's like looking to you, it seems like, about what are we going to do?
Yes. I don't really understand how I got in that position. I don't really understand as a two, how Ricard and how I ended up, like, it was like the only word I can describe it, it felt like magnets. Like, I literally got on that beach and I felt like I just felt really connected to everyone. And, it was hard because I was like, oh, this person's so great. I would love to work with them. This person's so great. I'd love to work with them. And I was really making a lot of friendships, I felt, and connections on that beach. And then, like, we get to the vote and, Louisville had never done this before. They just had never done this before. And so it was like this scramble. And every time something would happen, it's like Danny would look to me, like everyone would kind of look down towards my direction. So then we would just come together and figure it out. But it was almost like people were too scared to make a move. So I was feeling at the height of power. But, clearly, it all doesn't, it kind of implodes because of Deshaun, and he gets, uncomfortable and upset. And, he had felt like, obviously I wasn't listening to him, and I can understand from his perspective why he felt that way. But I really tried hard to make sure that he felt heard.
The challenge for you here is really that, and you talked about how everybody has like their own pawns and everybody is trying to, have the person that they're trying to protect. But, Xander has an idol and you have enough people where you could do, a split the vote because you want to at least flush Xander's idol, which I think that you had the correct call on, that you need to flush the idol from Xander. but you need another person to flush the idol on. And so that's going to be, people don't want to necessarily give up their person to potentially like have the or hear that they're going to be the other number that they're getting the vote flushed on.
Yes.
Or vote split on.
It was, I don't know. I mean, Rob, that part was kind of odd because, like, I mean, I remember I kept saying, like, let's vote Xander out. Let's just get Xander out. And they would say, well, he has an idol. It was like everyone was afraid of people who had idols. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Let him play his idol. You know, let's get it out, and then let's either force him to play it or vote him out completely. You know, but also let's split the votes. And it's supposed to be boys, girls. We were supposed to split the votes, boys, girls.
Yeah.
And the votes would have been fine. Everything would have been fine. Then Heather gets up, and it's like, you know, all day.
Actually, Shan, I actually misspoke. The problem is that who are we going to tell Xander is going to be the vote, and now people are starting to get a little freaked out over like, well, why are we telling Xander? I'm the person who's going home.
Right. That whole moment where Heather's like, well, why are we saying my name? Right. Right. That whole thing. Yeah. I can't even remember it that clearly, other than, you know, I think I say to, you know, Nasir, are we talking about the same vote when I say to Nasir and then to Heather, and then it's back and forth? Oh yeah, that day was rough. It's like nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to do any of it. And so I ended up being the person to do it. And honestly, I didn't really connect well with Heather, so I wasn't really too concerned, even though that she was upset. I was concerned that Nasir was upset, though. And so Nasir was like, no, I don't want my name out there at all, because he knew that he wasn't good with Danny Deshawn and that anything could flip at any moment. And so, you know, I end up saying to Heather, it's your name, right? And Heather just, you know, does not like that. And then she wants to talk all day long. She wants to talk, and I'm just like really not even. I mean, I listened to her, but I just wasn't really hearing her because Heather was just an oddball. But then we get to tribal, and you know, it is what it is. But you know, she was pissed about that, and she didn't like that, you know, clearly. So she was the first person to emerge as like a non-Shan supporter, I feel like.
Yeah, I can see the look on your face of how exhausting this is sort of like it, because you really are herding cats at this point of like, okay, here are 8 people. All right, come here. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're going to tell this person this. Like, well, hold on. You know, why are they talking about me?
And they were so panicked. Everybody was so panicked. Every Luvu person was panicked because they'd never been down this road before. And so everyone's like, well, I'm not going to say it. Well, I'm not going to say it. And I'm like, and I kept saying, well, why do we have to say anybody's name? Just let Xander sit in the loneliness of the day. Like, he doesn't need a name, right? We're at the merge at this point. But then, you know, Deshawn was like, we need to tell them a name. Can you tell them this name? And I was like, I really don't want to be throwing out people's names like that, but okay, it'll be what it'll be. And, you know, obviously that part does, I feel like, get messy. It does get messy.
Yeah.
And that was a very exhausting experience for me. Very exhausting. Yeah.
Shan, can I ask you in this moment that do you feel like that if you're going back and going to give yourself advice, do you tell yourself to push on the gas harder of like, you know, go ahead and tell everybody, okay, this is exactly what we're doing, or you push on the brake more and be more hands off about how everything is going to go? I
wish I was definitely more hands off. Definitely more hands off. I wish I would have like just stepped back and like kind of like just spoke with my alliance and been like, you guys, we have a plan. Let's just stay with our plan. You know, I think we don't need to tell anybody anything. You know, we've never seen anybody before have to tell somebody something. You know, we don't need to do that. And I probably would have just backed off a bit and been a little bit more like a passenger seat driver, or just behind, you know, just not as in the mix. But I think I felt the pressure, and this might be like my pastoral stuff getting in the way, but think about the pressure of like, well, no one's taking charge. Okay, well, I guess I have to take charge. Like, I'm the only one in the room. Like, okay, I'll just do it, you know? But I wish I would have stepped back and just like been a little bit more, okay, let's just see how this rolls out, and just kind of tuck away with Ricard, knowing that I had the All Black Alliance. I wish I would have just, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like it's really hard to win Survivor in the position that you were in, because I feel like that in modern Survivor, I feel like the person who's sort of like in this great spot at this point, I feel like is almost rarely the person who's going to go on to win. It's almost like you're like at the top of the mountain too early.
Right. And Ricard actually had talked to me about this on the beach. He was like, I feel like you're like, you've got too much power. Like, you're too in charge. He's like, you have so much influence. Like, people just listen to you. He's like, and here's the thing, you can get upset and people still love you. He's like, that's not me. He's like, but I feel like, he's like, that puts a target on you because I think people are going to start noticing, like, Shan's calling all the shots, you know. He's like, and I heard Deshaun throw out the clan Shan the other day, and I was like, what's that, you know? And so it was a growing thing, and believe it or not, like, it was, you know, we had that conversation on the Nasir vote out, and it was like after that I had really started to pull back in my game, just be like, okay, let me pull back, let me just let people, you know, do things. But it was too late. It was too late at that point. It was too late at that point. So, you know, I don't know that I could ever win Survivor.
Oh, I mean, Shannon, what if, maybe at this point, if you feel like you're in such a good position, maybe is there a way you got to like tank your game but not get voted out? I don't know. It's like like go from like too good of a position to like go back to the bottom.
Right, but like that's the thing. Like, what would I have done? What could I have done in that moment?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think I played too hard.
Look, it's a good problem to have. Some people never get to the top at any point.
Right. It's true. That's true. Some people don't. I just wish, you know, and so like there's a beauty to like an Erica game, you know, where you play under the radar and kind of just emerge maybe, you know, the last second. There's a beauty to that, but I just don't know that that's my personality, you know, and I don't know if I could to be someone different, you know, would have been much harder a thing, you know, and I don't know that I would have, if I would have played any other game and I got to the end, I don't know that I would have had the votes. But, you know, I remember getting to Ponderosa and everyone was like, oh my God, including the handlers, were like, we thought you were winning the game. Like, we thought you were winning the game. Like, it was already done. So it was like a good move on them to get out. But, you know, had I got to the end, yeah, I probably would have, it probably would have been a landslide because I had done a lot of work. But again, depends on who I'm at the end with, and you know, but yeah, if I had tanked my game and got to the end, I would have been seen as like a coattail rider, and I like, yeah. Like, you know, I'm too much of an independent and like out there person and extrovert to be like anyone else is gonna take my game from me. I wanted to play a strong game when I got on the island, so it just was too strong. I think it was too strong.
When you negotiated with Jeff for the rice, would you have done anything different about that? Because I feel like that you probably were really seen as like the spokesperson of the tribe at that point, where you really took charge of that negotiation with Jeff.
The Angelina 2.0, you mean? Was I the Angelina 2.0?
Well, I feel honestly, I feel like that Angelina, like in the edit, I feel like came off negatively to the point where even Davey at the final tribal council was like, when Angelina's like, did I mention that I got rice for the tribe? And Davey said, you know, when you do something selflessly, you don't keep talking about it. And you had so many other things on your resume that I feel like that was not something that you needed to talk about, but I felt like that you really did come across as like, okay, I speak for all these people, and I thought it sort of like solidified you as like the leader of the group. Yeah,
I think there was like that. I mean, after the was it grilled cheese? It was after the grilled cheese.
Grilled cheese.
Yeah, after the grilled cheese where I broke down. But I think also I knew that everybody else was really, really hungry, you know, and we were all starting to lose our minds. I felt like just talking about food all the time, and you know, and I wanted there to be better blood between Liana and I, and Ricard and Danny and Deshaun, because those three were eating and we were not. And I just wanted it to, you know, just level the playing field by having rice. And so I really do feel like I was trying to care for our tribe, just because no one had started out with rice. So people were like, was that a game move, or were you just hungry? It's like, I was hungry, but I knew everybody else was hungry too. And so did Nasir. Right. And so I did just step forward because of that. Really, that was really the reason. And then, you know, then the other three step forward, and then Jeff locks in. You know, he wanted 7 people. You know, I was like, some of these heads are not stepping forward, you know. But I was grateful for the opportunity to negotiate rice for my tribe, because we were all feeling it. Mentally, we were all feeling it. Yeah. It took a big toll. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it did.
Okay. So Evie's going to ultimately win immunity. Then they can't go home. And ultimately, it's going to be after Heather stands up, then it's going to be Tiffany that ultimately goes home. But you end up getting into the heated conversation with Deshaun at that vote over who should ultimately go home. You say maybe we should vote on Heather right now. Deshaun doesn't want to do that. He seems to like a little bit resigned from the conversation. But it's a big blow up that happens at tribal council. how much did that impact things moving forward after having the blow up with Deshaun?
It was never the same until the morning that I was voted out. It was never the same because, like, you know, Heather gets up, and at that point I'm thinking she's pissed because I threw out her name, the other tribal. So I thought she was trying to do a blind sign to get me out. I really was thinking that, even though I knew she had beef with Nasir, but I didn't know what she was doing. And Heather just seemed like this random. She just emerged randomly, and it just did not make sense. And she always struck me as a very odd lady. I just could not figure her out. And so, you know, when she stands up, like, I'm like, okay, guys, we should just vote out Heather. And at that moment, because Evie and I had talked earlier that morning, and I was like, maybe it is about pivoting because, you know, I was feeling stuff with Deshaun, and I was like, maybe it's like a woman's alliance where I pivot to Evie, Liana, myself, you know, like figuring that whole thing. I figure out numbers there. Because I mean, Evie said it in her Ponderosa, and I really felt it too. We were like star-crossed lovers. We wanted to work together, but I was probably the Evie on Ua, and she was the Shan on Yasa, and we were both just, at one point she was trying to get me, and we probably would have been like going at each other. But I did want to work with Evie. I really, really liked that girl. And so, you know, Deshaun is talking with Heather, which I don't even know why he was over there, but he was talking with her, and we didn't realize how close he was to Heather and Erica until much later in the game, clearly. But he comes over and he's like, so what are we doing? And I was like, I think we're voting Heather. I think we've all just agreed we're voting out Heather, right? And again, he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And then I'm like, oh, okay. So then, and I'm like, but dude, then come here and tell us what we should talk to us, right? Like, my whole thing was like, just come into the circle, share your view. Just because I say something doesn't mean that's what it is. It's like, I'm just strategizing. If I was a man, I mean, I feel like I'm just telling you strategy. I'm not saying we're actually going to do that. I'm just saying, this is what we've decided. What do you want to do? Because you're another person. Like, what are you about? And then he said, no, but he doesn't want to come and talk about it. So then he's like, fine, I'll do it. And then he sits down, he's salty about it and sulking. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly he's not okay about it. It doesn't take, you know, like a mind reader to figure out that he's pissed. So I go over to him and I kneel in front of him like, dude, like we're in alliance together. Like, you're my brother, you're my friend. Like, come talk over here. Like, let's figure it out. Let's work together. He's like, no, Shan, I'm going to do it. Because you're running the show. And that was his big thing. Like, you're running the show, you're in charge. And I was like, no, it's not. That's not it. It went on much longer than people saw. Sure. Me kneeling in front of him, begging him to come back to the circle to have a freaking conversation. So then I say, and it's like, Tiffany's right. Like, I give up like my power in that moment. And I'm just like, okay, well, Deshaun doesn't want to do it, so we can't do it. Which even still, in some ways, is still power, because now people are like, well, okay, so now we're not doing it. And so then we end up voting out, you know, Tiff that night, which doesn't make any sense at all. Mm-hmm. You know, he really wasn't a threat. You know, and Deshaun wins, even though he was sulking. And then he gets back to camp and he's still throwing a hissy fit, even though he got his way. He was so draining on the island. And I just, you know, it's like, was I not listening? I get how the edit had to be, and they're showing it from his perspective because he's going to go further in the game than I am. But I really tried hard to make sure that Deshaun felt heard, especially after we had that conversation. But it just never was going to be enough for him. You know, it never was going to be enough for him. So
do you feel like that if this was a 39-day season, do you feel like that a lot of these problems that ultimately are going to come up and do in the Black Alliance, do you think that if it was 39 days where you had 3 days between these tribal councils, that you think that just with more time that they could have, these issues could have been worked out? Yeah,
for sure. 26-day game. It's not harder than a 39-day game, but it's very different. It's very different. You do not have the time to repair relationships. You just you don't have the time to, you know, build that relational stock. And in some ways that can work to someone's favor, because it's like, oh, this person seems like they know what they're doing. Let me just fall in line because there's no time and you're scrambling. So I'm just going to stick to the person that seems the most stable in some place, or like seems like they're in charge and has it, right? And then that ways that kind of favored my game sometimes. But it also hurt my game because it was like, I didn't have the time to, you know, really develop relationship with Deshaun. We didn't get to go swimming in the beach. We didn't get to go fishing. We didn't go snorkeling. We didn't do any of that. You know, we had the night to talk, you know, the morning to talk, and that was it. We were right back in it. So, you know, I think if it was a 39-day game, I think we would have seen that it might have been a different outcome. I definitely think on my vote out, it would have been a different outcome because it just would have been more time. You know, I'm certain Danny would have come to me and said there would have been a blow up between all of us. He would have been pissed. We would have had a conversation. I would have said, and I would have flipped and said, no, let's do Ricard. Like, it would have changed. I really do believe that. I've thought about that, but I didn't play a 39-day game. I played a 26-day game.
Because I really think like with the cookout, like if there were vote outs on Mondays instead of Thursdays, I think there's a lot of times that that the things would like people that came to their senses and said like, what are we doing? Like, let's remember why we're doing this. They had a lot of sit downs and everything. And I mean, and at this point, you've been working with Danny and Deshaun for what, 4 days?
4 days.
Yeah. It's hard, you gotta have a lot of conversations, and I'm sure for everybody involved, you don't want to necessarily give up pieces that you've been working with for 16 days or 17 days at this point also, where it's like, well, how much can I trust this? So it's a very difficult situation that everybody's trying to figure out.
Yeah, and it demonstrates really just how fickle trust can be, in moments like that, because, Danny and I would constantly say, we just got to trust each other. We got to trust each other. We can't listen to what other people say. We just got to trust each other. That was, I think, Danny and myself in that, but, once it's gone, it's really hard to repair. And honestly, if you think about it, it took Deshaun and I, after that vote, okay, so maybe 2, 3, 4, another 4 days to be okay again. Because it was the morning that I got voted out that Deshaun and I were finally okay again. So maybe 3 days again for some, maybe if there had been more time, right? So it wasn't that until that morning, after a pizza under the stars, where I come back and I'm gathering wood, where my belly's satisfied all of a sudden there, I could say to Deshaun, like, we're in it. Like, I'm here with you. It doesn't matter what you hear. I'm never writing down your name. I get you have student loans. I was homeless several years ago. You know what I mean? I get it. I get the need for money, but I'm not here for that. If we're doing the mission and that's what it is, then I'm locked in, And so we were back. And I felt like that was the first moment Deshaun and I were like, good, like Gucci good. And then, but clearly we weren't, because I voted my ass out.
Then did Deshaun then pivot after that conversation, or you just felt you were good, but he was already down the road for this plan?
No, I mean, that at that point we were all locked in. That's where all this miscommunication happens, right? It's like, so at that point, Deshaun and I are locked in, and this is why ultimately I'm so confused on the jury and at Ponderosa, is because why on earth would you make this promise, on mission? That again, if that was gameplay, that feels like out of bounds gameplay, and it's not till, later on that day, Liana comes and shares and this whole thing kind of unfolds.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. I want to come back to that. I just want to go to this, the vote where Nasir is going to go home. They split you all up. And, at this point, you have mentioned a couple times in the show that Erica is somebody who is on your radar. You were one of the few people at that time that I'm worried about Erica. What was Erica doing that put her high on your list?
It was just that Erica kept sneaking past everything. Like, just literally, she kept dodging every time we wanted to get her out. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough for me to go, no, something's happening here. And with Survivor, you just need a little bit of like, just need to catch your drift once or twice to get really to the end. And also, Erica, she was a thinker. It's not that Erica wasn't smart. It's just that Erica didn't make a lot of big strategic moves, but it doesn't mean she wasn't smart. It just means that her game wasn't showcased in that way. She played very under the radar, and I felt like she was more of a threat than anyone else just because she was thinking. And she had won that one immunity. She'd won an immunity challenge too that made me go, I don't know, you guys, I really think that we should be putting our focus on Erica. But Deshaun was like, he wanted numbers in his pocket. He wanted the Heather, and he wanted the Erica. He wanted them around for him because he was thinking of his own game, which I understand. But I just knew that Erica was one of those people who was going to somehow magically get to the end. I just knew it. I knew she was, because she just kept, it was just, and also Survivor, it hasn't been a game of luck, I feel like, in the past, but I felt like this season really came down to a lot of luck. And we all kept drawing the same rocks. We all kept drawing the same rocks every time we went to compete. It was like the teams were always either heavy stacked on one side and not stacked on the other, and Erica getting the gray rock or being offered the gray rock. It was so odd to me. And I was like, nah, Erica, she's about to get to the end. I can feel it. I could feel it in my bones.
Okay. So you end up in a group with, it's Eric and Heather and you and Ricard and Nasir. And we haven't talked too much about Nasir also, but Nasir is also going to be somebody who is a number who is going to be working with you and Ricard. Did you have a really good relationship with Nasir?
I did. I had a really good relationship with Nasir. He's mad at me because right now he's mad at me because production gave me credit for the shanty. And I didn't even want credit for the shanty, but he's still upset about the
Ponderosa.
The Ponderosa shanty. He came up with the idea for the song. So he's kind of upset about that because, production gave it to me, even though I didn't, I really didn't write it and I don't want credit for it. But
is he really mad or he's like play mad?
No, he's really, really mad about it.
Over a Ponderosa video, Nasir?
Yeah, he's really, really mad about it.
Nasir, I got to be honest. You're not allowed to be mad over a Ponderosa video.
Yeah, he made me, he called me and he made me tweet that the credit should belong to him. So I had to get on Twitter and tweet that, it wasn't my song. So I did. And then a few days later I took it down. But when we were on the island, so I tell you, Rob, the drama off the island is just as kudos.
I can understand if it was in the episode, but in the Ponderosa video, Nasir, come on.
I'm telling you, the drama off the island is just as intense as it is sometimes on the island. But yes. I think he's a great guy, and he wrote that song for his. He wanted to do the song for his son, his daughter, and he's so that to him, it is his credit. It does belong to him.
So credit to Nasir for the sea shanty.
For the sea shanty, credit to Nasir for the sea shanty.
Even though it has the word "shan" right in the title.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's not called a sea Nasirti.
Oh my gosh. But on the island, I really like Nasir. He fed us. He kept us healthy out there. Yep. He kept us, our bellies fed, with his cocoa breadish. He would make these cocoa breadish patties with cocoa bread mashed up and coconut mashed up and sometimes a little bit of crab.
Coconut breadfruit combined? That's what this is?
Yes, coconut and breadfruit combined, and it was called cocoa breadish.
Never heard this before. Okay.
Right, he made it. He came up with it.
Nasir invented it. Okay, everybody. Credit to Nasir for sea breadish or cocoa breadish.
Credit to Nasir. That's all him. He's the chef. He came up with that, and I think ultimately that's what constipated me. But we can get there.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then, maybe not credit to Nasir.
So, but he was honestly, I considered him a part of the alliance, but I think Dan and Sean had different feelings about Nasir, and it just never was going to work out. They just had their own history with being on Luvu, and it was just never going to come together. But I really liked Nasir, and he didn't seem like a threat to me, honestly. He tells you exactly what he's thinking. And yeah, I didn't want to vote him out. I really didn't want to vote him out. The only reason I voted him out was because Ricard could not let go of the fact that I had the extra vote. He would not drop it. He would not let go. And honestly, in my heart, Rob, I don't know. Tell me, you gotta come at me and tell me if I'm out of line here. I really do feel like that the extra vote belongs to me. I really did feel that in the game. He didn't work for it. He didn't put his neck out there. He didn't salve it. He didn't ruin a relationship with his little brother. He didn't do any of that. He didn't even come up with the plan. But I gave it to him to hold on to because he said, I will give it back to you, girl. I will give it back to you. Then he didn't. We have this whole fight, but he could not let that extra thing go. He could not let that vote go. And it was him and Danny. And at that point in the game, the whole Shan's not listening to me, and Ricard saying it always has to be your way. All that was in my head. And I was like, you know what? Fine, Ricard, I want to take out Heather, but you want to take out Nasir. So I was like, here, babe, this is your move. This is more for you than it is for me. And it was stupid. It was a stupid move. It wasn't for my game, clearly. But I just was so sick of hearing Ricard bitch about that extra vote that I was like, just take it. Just take it. And let's do it. Not take it because I was going to cast that vote, but it was going to be my play. But we'll do Nasir instead of Heather, which.
Right. And this comes right after the papaya thing also. Was that a big deal in your mind, the papaya incident?
Okay, Rob, so the papaya thing wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But what people didn't see was the day before that, right? Ricard also won an advantage where, you know, he won the merge feast at the day before that, he won the merge feast, okay? And we had gotten a little jar of rice. Jeff gave us a little jar of rice to split between all of us. We split it, and I had my little rice in the shell. Ricard comes back from the merge feast and puts his finger in my rice and takes a bite out of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, Ricard, you just ate at the merge. You just ate at the merge. But I didn't say anything, and I let it go. I didn't say anything. And I let it go. Didn't make a big stink out of it because I didn't want to put a target on his back because we're working as a two. Then the next day, he comes and does the same thing with the papaya. And at that point, I was so irritated with him because I was like, this is Survivor 101, like basic food politics, common courtesy rules. You ate today. We didn't eat today. Like, even if it's a sliver, you know, like, and you didn't go looking for it. Like, we sweat. Nasir sweat to find the papaya, but I was standing behind it to catch it. But, you know, we went and found that papaya. We looked for it. You got grilled cheese and chips served to you. Like, you know, and I get his thinking. It's like, I want to eat something from the land. You know, this is me playing Survivor. But dude, like, wait till you're at, you know, Ponderosa or Malolo if you win. Like, wait till after. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, there's all these people that are hungry, and it looks bad. You know, it looked really, really bad. And so I was really bothered about that. But, you know, let it go. But, you know, this whole I'm the papaya king. It's like, it's not cute. It's not cute. You know, it's like, it's so frustrating that you did that to us. But
yeah. Well, look,
it was a big deal, Rob. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, but I think it's also sometimes like the people that are like the closest to us. It's like your roommate does something, and it's like if a different person did it on a different day, it wouldn't bother you. But sometimes, you know, you just been with somebody for so long that they get.
If it had been Danny, I probably wouldn't have said anything, right? If it had been anybody else, I probably wouldn't have said anything. But Ricard was on my nerves. Like, we had been living together for so long, and not my roommate, but he became like my husband out there. Like, that's how I felt. Like, that's how we fought. Yep. We would fight, but we would move together, you know? But I just was like, I came for him about the papaya, and they caught it all on camera. And of course, you know, it is what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So ultimately, okay. So Nasir,
would you have eaten the papaya, Rob? Would you have eaten the papaya?
I mean, I think I would have, you know, tasted it if it was okay.
So you would have eaten it even though you had grilled cheese and chips?
The way that Ricard told the story, he said it was much later and it was left over in the pot from after it was over.
That's not true. That's not
okay. True. All right. There's a difference of opinion, I guess. We'll leave it there. Let's not get too hung up on the papaya. All right. So, all right. Nasir goes home. Nasir has his idol, and he gets blindsided, and ultimately, okay, now Nasir is gone. And so, how are you feeling now after? Okay, so Nasir's gone. You're down to just 8. And this is before you're gonna go away on the reward, but it's I mean, you have the Black Alliance, 4 people, there's a group of 8. Yeah. You're feeling pretty good.
Yes, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yes.
We have been at this point we have the numbers. At this point, the math is the evidence at this point, you know? I feel pretty good. Yeah.
In the Big Brother, in the cookout, there was a lot of like lengths that the players went to try to like hide the fact that the Black players were working together. Was that something that you were thinking about in Survivor to try to really, change the way that people were perceiving what was going on?
No, there's no hiding that. Rob, there's no hiding that. I mean, 2 Black women working together is a target. You think you can hide 4 Black people trying to work together? Anytime we sneak off, you know what I mean? Like, there's no. So I was like, there's no need to hide this. We're not. You all know what happened in 2020. You all know why we're here. If it wasn't on your radar, then you're just not dialed into what's happening socially and politically, what's going on in the climate in America or in the world. But like, there was no way to hide that. I wasn't even going to put effort into hiding that. Are you kidding me? I mean, I think me and Liana tried to hide our little, like, how tight we were. But no, I mean, like, we're the only 2 Black women and we were tight. The jokes we would crack, you know, the way we would talk about food, like the way we would get on with each other, the dances on that, like, there was no way to hide that energy, you know? And, you know, they were smart to know that, come on. And you know, and Ricard, you know, he was up in the mix too. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there was no way to hide that. I wasn't going to put effort into hiding that. No way.
Okay. So Ricard is going to win the reward challenge. Okay. Yeah. He goes and takes you and Xander and Heather, and you and Ricard have this really amazing conversation in the episode where you're talking about your working relationship. Could you go to the end? Who would beat whom? How were you feeling about things with Ricard coming out of that?
I mean, coming out of that with things with Ricard, I felt like, because I mean, at Pizza Under the Stars, you have to understand, like, I was already starting to feel like Deshaun, Danny too. Everybody was like, it was Danny, myself, and Liana. We all wanted to pull away from Deshaun. We all wanted to pull away from Deshaun because he was just a volatile player. So at that point in my mind, that alliance felt like it was starting to crumble, though I wanted to stay true and I wasn't going to not do what I said I was going to do. And so when me and Ricard talk, it's this moment where I'm like, well, maybe I'll take Ricard to the prom kind of thing, right? And I wanted to ask him to be final two with me. I really did on that challenge. I don't know why Xander and Heather came with us, but it is what it is. And so I say to, Ricard, we're like talking about it. And right before I say to him, like, let's lock it in, final two right here, right? Like he says to Xander and Heather, he says, man, like this game, he's like, me and Shan don't even know what we're going to do. People think that we're tighter than we actually are, but we're not, like, and we don't even know, we haven't made any deals or anything like that. And he's like, so we know that this is not going to last for very long. That's what he says in front of Heather and Xander. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe he doesn't want to go to the prom with me kind of thing. So I was actually, that was the moment in the game where I felt really rejected and just like kind of hurt. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not Ricard and I to go to the end, and maybe he wants to play his own game, and I can understand because I've made all the big moves this season, and he's just kind of been rocking with me. And so, I get back to the beach, and when I get back to the beach, I'm still very much like, let me go chat with my alliance because I know they didn't get pizza, so let me go repair that bridge, And so that was really where my head was at when I came back to the beach. And really, the movements of everything in my death episode start from right when I get back to the beach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How so?
So, like, people didn't see this, but so I get, and then this is really how it all happens. People didn't see this. So I get back, and the first person, I went to go look for Liana, but the first person I bump into was Danny. And Danny goes, Shan, let me rap with you. And early in the mornings, Danny and I would have worship on the beach together, and whoever else was there. So Danny and I kind of go off to the side, and I'm thinking, like, want to pray, want to talk or whatever. But he's like, Shan, I want to talk to you. Like, I think it's time to vote out Ricard. And so at this point, I'm like, oh, well, it might be a good time because of the whole Pizza Under the Stars fiasco. And I say, well, why Ricard now? We have the numbers. It doesn't make sense to vote out Ricard right now. And he says, well, because he's like, I feel like you're holding on to your person. And it's been like, you've only known him for 18 days, Shan. Like, you're going to throw away $1 million. This is what he said. You're going to throw away $1 million for someone you only know 18 days. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, Danny, like, are you like, just really what you want to do? And I probably wouldn't have taken it serious had anybody came to me, anybody else, but it was Danny. Danny and I were pretty close. Our relationship was actually growing, and he and I both had issues with Deshaun. So we were just like, okay, all right. I said, okay, well, if you want to do this, then let's lock it in right now, and I'll tell Liana and you tell Deshaun. He's like, okay, bet. So I said, all right, let's vote Ricard. He said, let's vote Ricard. At that point, Ricard was going home. So I grab my bag, I start heading back to the shelter. I bump into Liana, who was just with Ricard, but I bump into Liana, and I'm like, Liana, I start crying as I'm walking up into the shelter, and then start tearing up. I wasn't crying, but I was tearing up. So Liana comes and she says, we're sitting down, and I'm like, Liana, I think, she's like, I said, Liana, I think I have to do something that's really, really hard, and I'm really scared to do it. She goes, what do you have to do? I said, I feel like it's time to vote out Ricard. And then she goes, you feel like it's time to vote out Ricard? And I go, yeah, I feel like it's time to vote out Ricard. She goes, wait, why do you want to vote out Ricard? I was like, well, I was just talking to Danny, and Danny was saying, like, he feels like it's time. And, I really want our relationship with Danny to stay solid. So, I want to give him what he wants because I trust him. She goes, yeah, I trust Danny too. I go, okay. And then she goes, okay, wait, Shan. And then she goes, wait, Shan. So why do you want to go with me to the end? Is it because you think you can beat me? And I say to Liana, I say, no. I said, because I love you. I want it to be two dope queens in the end. Like, Liana, I'd give you $1 million because I really love you. I want us to end together. I want to sit beside you. She goes, so it's not because you think you can beat me? And I go, no. And then that's when she starts crying. and like kind of breaks down. And she's like, okay, I got to tell you something. So Danny and Deshawn, I said, they're coming for me. She goes, yes, they're coming for you. She goes, they came up with this plan last night at the beach, at the shore, that they wanted to vote when we were getting water or something. She's like, that they wanted to vote out you or Ricard, and they're coming for you and Ricard. Either one, they're just trying to get you guys out. So then at that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh. So Danny, at some point, I didn't see this, but at some point he walks past and he says that he sees me crying. Which I was, because I was really, people think I was crying over Ricard, but I was heartbroken that Danny and Deshawn were coming for me because, there was this whole big mission thing. So I say, okay. Right. So at that point, I go to Xander and I say, Xander, would you be willing to make a big move to vote out Deshawn? Can we use your extra vote to do it? He says, yes. So at this point, I have the numbers to now vote out Deshawn because I know Ricard will vote with me because, I just know he will. So I'm thinking, all right, I feel like I have the numbers and I could probably pull in maybe an Erica as well too. So I'm thinking at that point, all right, I say to Liana, I said, Liana, Xander, let's not tell anybody anything. Let's just wait until after, the challenge today to then like bum rush everybody with information so everyone feels scatterbrained and like scrambled. And then let's just like lock them all in last minute. And Xander was in, Liana was in, I was in, and I was going to tell Ricard. So then I go over to Ricard after I talk to them and I say, Ricard, I have the votes to get out Deshawn. He goes, why do you want to get out Deshawn? He goes, it doesn't make sense to take away our numbers. And I go, I know. I said, but they're coming for you and for me. And so then we go into the challenge. Then the challenge happens. Mm-hmm. Ricard wins immunity. And of course, then I come back and I say to Liana, Liana, I don't think we should make that move right yet. I think we should try and get to like Final Four with all of us. Like we said, let's talk to Danny and Deshawn and see where they're at. We talk to them and then we lock in, all right, we're going to vote out Erica. Let's vote out Erica tonight. And so at that point, I'm feeling good because Danny and Deshawn don't know what me and Liana had discussed. And I tell Xander, he's like, what happens to the plan to vote out Deshawn? I'm like, can we just wait on that? Can we do Erica? Xander was like, yeah, let's do Erica. So then I leave because I hadn't used the bathroom for 18 days. Okay. And medic came to see me. So I was with the medics for the rest of the afternoon, ass naked, getting 2 enemas. So that's what I was doing for the rest of the day. Now the busy
hold on, I'm hearing myself back. It was all the cocoa breadish.
It was all the cocoa breadish that backed me up, and I could not use the bathroom. And so medic was concerned that I hadn't gone.
The Sears revenge.
The Sears karma. It's the karma. It's what you sow is what you shall reap, Shan. That's what it is. And so I couldn't go. I couldn't poop. So sometimes shit will literally take you out in a game. So yeah, so basically that's when Ricard went to work and he got the votes like that. Mm-hmm. And then I went to tribal and everyone's like, why didn't she play your idol? And were you ego? Was it ego? Was it what? And it was like, no, my ass was sore. And I was just really trying to get through tribal council. I really wasn't even thinking, anybody was doing anything crazy. But the funny thing is that after I come back from medic, I'm lying in the shelter and I say to Liana, Liana goes, you okay? And I go, Liana, mm-hmm. I think something's up. I think something's brewing. She goes, no, we're all voting Erica. It's good. She's like, be calm. You're fine. And I was like, okay, it's fine. Went to tribal, got voted out.
So hold on. I just want to try and not hear myself. Let's see. Okay. All right. Shan, so when Liana told you about how that Danny and Deshawn said, I want to vote out Ricard, I want to vote out Shan, was it just a telephone game? Did the guys actually say that, or did Liana misinterpret what they were saying?
No, but Liana had the conversation with Danny Deshawn. But what Liana just didn't do, I think had Liana gone back to Deshawn and said, I told Shan, it would have played out very differently. But the problem is that Deshawn didn't know that I knew, and that's why he didn't know that I knew. And so when he heard that I was coming for him, he didn't understand why, right? But because when Ricard goes to him, he says, Shan wants to get you out. Do you want to vote Shan out? And then Deshawn's like, yeah, I'll vote Shan out because if she's coming for me, then I'll give you the vote. And so he's desperate at that point. And Danny doesn't want to say anything because he's like, well, they had 5 guns pointing at you. And I'm like, again, it's strategy. I had the freaking idol. Like, we could have worked something out, but everyone, that's what I'm saying. They weren't strategic. They weren't thinking that way. They just were, everybody was so reactive. And so it wasn't just that it wasn't just broken telephone. It was like, Ricard saw the crack in the alliance. He saw that it was Deshaun. He knew exactly where to go to get the extra vote. Deshaun went to Danny, and Deshaun made it sound like I basically flipped on the alliance and went to Ricard and told him everything, which I really didn't. I thought they were coming to me, and I thought they had flipped on me. So really, it comes down to Liana's like spilling of the beans to me, which is why she's trying to save me. But in the end, I get voted out. But I would have been mortified had I played my idol and Liana gone out. So, I wish she hadn't just told me anything. I wish they would have just blindsided me and got out Ricard and not said anything to me at all. That way my hands would have been clean and I wouldn't have known. I would have voted for Erica, and then, Ricard would have been gone. He wouldn't have come for me. So, I just wish things would have been different, but this is the game. This is the game. One thing, you say one thing, someone says another, everyone's hearts are tugging on everyone's emotions are tugging on them. And, but Danny's whole gripe was like, why didn't Liana say that she also had the conversation? Why didn't Liana say to us that she told you? Like, why didn't y'all come to us? And I'm like, well, why didn't y'all come to me? Why are you guys having this conversation without me anyways? It's like we all have our issues with why it happened the way that it did, but ultimately it just sunk my game. I think I got the short end of the stick. But
yeah,
I still didn't write down Deshaun's name at the end of the day. I voted Erica, so. And it was Heather. Everyone credits this move of the split vote for Shan and Liana to Erica, but it wasn't Erica's move. It was actually Heather's, ironically. Yeah. Which, again, it's like it was an episode of Karma with, Nasir's Coco Bredish and Heather's freaking, like, let's get her out because she threw my name out there. Nutso kind of comment, so I had it coming clearly. It was like A2 Brute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I then, after you go out of the game, we saw from the Ponderosa, then there's a lot of healing that still has to happen with everybody involved. Could you just give us a little bit of a sense of like how did the conversations ultimately transpire to ultimately get you all back into a good place, assuming that's where we are now?
Yeah, it was hard because when I came to Ponderosa, like I really had no clue what happened. I had no clue what happened. I had no idea. Nothing made any sense to me. And then it wasn't until it was like Liana had come in, then Danny, but it was a slow trickle. It was the slow trickle of information that kept being really triggering the entire time. So Ponderosa for me was just like not the best experience. It was like very, very toxic. But in essence, like Liana really didn't explain what happened well. She was just like, you have to talk to Danny and Deshaun because it did not make any sense. And like, clearly I'm here now, and I knew that once one Black player was voted out, it was going to be a domino effect. And it really was that way, only Deshaun, right? But the whole alliance got eaten completely. And so when Danny comes in, like, at that point, Liana had shared with me that it was Danny and Deshaun, wanted to get you out. And so at that point, I'm still thinking Danny and Deshaun wanted to get me out, but I didn't understand why. What was their thinking? We had the numbers and I was voting with them. It just didn't make any sense. No one had explained to me that Ricard went to Deshaun. No one told me that, right? And Liana didn't know that. And so she's like, you got to talk to Danny and Deshaun. And so Danny comes in and like, he's like, Shan, give me a hug. And so I give him a hug. And he's like, why did you give me a half hug? And I'm like, I didn't give you a half hug. He's like, yeah. He's like you won't hug me properly. So then I hugged him. He's like, what's the problem? I was like, nothing, we can talk about it after. And he's like, he wanted to talk about it right then as he got his meal. I was like, I don't want to talk about it right now because I'm hot. And if I talk about it, I'm gonna go off. And I did. I went off. And he's like, you flipped on us. You told Ricard. And I was like, I told my number one because you guys were coming for me. He's like, when are we coming for you? And we couldn't put together the pieces until it was like we had maybe one or two drinks. I was drinking with Danny. And then Liana had gone to bed. And then I was like, why did I flip? Why was I gonna vote out Deshaun? And then it hit me, the conversation with Liana. And you see it all happen. You see the whole thing play out. But Danny was like, oh, snap. So then Liana talked. And, it was hard. Ponderosa was very, very hard. Because, it was like a lot of like racial dynamics and, gender dynamics. And that was hard. Very difficult experience. And didn't end until tribal council, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so much to unpack here because it's also, you're talking about, not just your game, but also I'm sure there's a feeling like you let people down by not being able to, pull this off. And, why couldn't we do this? And so I can't even begin to imagine, what that must be like because I can only imagine about what it's like to lose Survivor under regular circumstances.
Yeah. I definitely felt like, yeah, we, you know, and I think I was carrying too much. I watched your know-it-alls with Jamal, you know, and you know,
Yeah.
he said, you know, I think there's two opinions on this. It's like, no, stick together as a community, and then it's like, no, we've come this far, play your own game, do what you need to do, you know. And I think when I heard Jamal's talk with you, it was like, it was hard, it was triggering, but I heard it, you know, the idea that like we marched so you guys could kind of walk, and you know, we walked so you guys could run, and we ran so you guys could fly, kind of thing. And it's like, this was our moment to fly. Like, don't have to worry about community and dynamics and all that. And yet 2020 was just so devastating that I don't think any of us felt the freedom not to come together, not even to, you know, attempt to work together, you know? So I think that attempt felt really, I just was really sad that we didn't pull it off, really sad that we couldn't prove to the rest of the world that we could work together. But clearly that's not the case because the cookout did it, you know? But it's just, I felt sad that I was a part of an alliance that just couldn't get it together, couldn't communicate. And as a Black woman, I felt left behind. And I think Liana probably shares the same experience of just like feeling like, you know, Black men are so quick to drop Black women, even though we burn advantages and we work hard to keep them in the game. And that was another whole other dynamic. But yeah, losing as a woman of color, losing as a Black woman this year I think was really hard, just because I felt like I was carrying the MS community on my shoulders and the Black community on my shoulders, and you know, women. And I felt like I really wanted to stand for a lot, and I felt like I failed. And for some people, they'll be saying like, you know, some people will say, Shan, you were just doing too much. You were just doing too much out there. And maybe I was thinking too much about the world and thinking too much about what would happen. But, you know, all I watched going into the game was the George Floyd trial. You know, that's all I had in my room. And every morning I got to hear different things, but we never got the results. We never heard the verdicts. We went into the game thinking, you know, we may not see justice. So let's, you know, play in such a way that we would bring a win home for the Black community. And 2020 was so freaking hard. And I was right there in the center of it at the LA marches. And so I just, yeah, just devastating loss for sure.
In the final tribal council, you voted for Erica. Was it close for you between Erica or Deshawn, or were you decidedly Erica?
It was not even close. I think Deshawn had just burnt way too many bridges with, I think, people. I think that's why the jury voted the way that it did. But ultimately for me, you know, I wasn't voting for Xander because I knew Xander's gameplay just wasn't that strong throughout the season. And Erica really gave us no choice. I mean, that was Xander's Xander letting Erica into the final three was the moment I really knew, okay, this young man does not know how to read the room. Like, he just doesn't get the social dynamics. He just wasn't reading it. And so that was for me where he lost the vote, even though I probably wasn't that close to voting for him. So Erica being a woman, I think, and playing under the radar and being smart and savvy, I think she just really just made herself, she just shined really as the winner in the final three. And Deshawn, it was just too much. I mean, I think the funny thing is that this tells you how much social, you know, and relationships matter, is that Deshawn was probably far more strategic and doing way more than Erica was doing in the game. But Deshawn just had really poor jury management. And I mean, just volatile, like temper tantrums, just like, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. I think most of my energy was taken up by Deshawn at the merge. And I think when I got to final tribal council, I was maybe one of two people, me and Danny, who was saying to Deshawn, like, don't give up. Like, because, you know, after I asked him my question, he shut down because he felt like it was already resolved and we had already dealt with it and he already spoke to it. But like, I didn't get a chance to speak to it because I couldn't speak because the jury can't speak. But now that I can speak, I do have questions for you. And this was a question that we kind of all had was, did you do this for capital? Like, what were you thinking? You know, because we didn't clearly have the timeline of events. We didn't get to watch it all play out. You know, and so we're just hearing bits of information, and clearly he was doing way more than we knew. But it felt like, if you really weren't about this mission, then why lock us in this way? And that was my big question to him, was like, what were you thinking? And I wanted to give him an opportunity to speak to white America and to Black America and to kind of answer those questions as well. And he just shut down. He went back into sulking mode and he kind of folded his arms and he was just pissed for the rest of the final tribal council, you know, to the point where I had to say to Sean, like, it's not done yet. Like, I'm not sold on voting for Erica. Like, tell us what you did. Tell us your story. Tell us your strategy. And he just would not. He was shut down completely, to the point that Jeff had to point it out and say, like, Deshawn, what's going on? Like, Shan asked the question, but like, you seem stuck on something. You know, and it really set the tone for the rest of the tribal council. It wasn't a fun tribal council. It wasn't a fun finale, because, you know, he was really hurting, and that sucks to see that he was hurting and had to make the final three. But it was gonna be, I think, Erica had my vote. You know, she just absolutely, you know, she had done enough at that point. And she wasn't messy. You know, there were just really messy things that happened with Deshaun,
Mm-hmm.
tribal council, and we all saw it. You know, so
Yeah. Sharon, one of the things I thought was kind of a letdown about the season was I thought that there were things that were great about the final reunion show that happened right after. Not the pizza, but I thought that it was like good to get like people's immediate reactions to some of the things. But I thought that the finale really missed being able to like talk to you and the other players in the Black Alliance about hearing the reaction from people about the Black Alliance. Could you talk at all about that, of what it meant for you to sort of like in the the viewing public watching the show, and some of the positive feedback that you got?
So yeah, I think like it was hard because what we experienced as Final Tribal Council wasn't what we watched back as Final Tribal Council. And I think there was a lot of conversation around minorities and people of color and the All Black Alliance, and there was a lot of talk about it, but they really didn't show any of that. And again, Deshaun really shutting down, like that was a big part of Final Tribal Council. It's so that really took up a lot of space, and again, we didn't see any of that. And so what we did see, just it felt like, I don't know, not a very good representation of kind of what we experienced out there. But I felt like people were very like, at least after the game, are you talking about the positive feedback I received after the game kind of thing?
Yeah, for when people that were watching the show. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like I got stormed by a lot of Black women, just really like, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything you said and for what you did. And, thank you for asking that question. Cause, I think it was like a real like shared experience of like, we always feel left behind. But I also felt, even from production, I felt from people of color on production staff, like I felt a lot of support for that. And for some of the kind of the questions that were asked to get clarity, because I think a lot of people felt let down by that moment. Yeah, I don't know. Final Tribal Council was, and then we did. I mean, it wasn't like a finale. Like it wasn't like what we've seen in the past, And the difference also there was that, people at the finale show have seen the whole season, and so they speak to things better. We couldn't do any of that because we were all still feeling the game. And I really felt for Xander, Erica, and Deshaun, because they just got out of the game and now they were eating pizza and drinking wine. And it just was this really weird moment. And so it was it felt a little anticlimactic. And yeah.
Has it sunk in for you yet that a couple of months from now, knock on wood, that there will be some new Survivor contestants that are going to go be playing in seasons 43, 44, and they're going to ask them, who are you going to play like? What player are you trying to draw from in your game this season? And I think that there will be more than a few players who mention that they want to do things like how you did them. Have you thought at all about the impact that you made on the game?
Well, I mean, I actually haven't, but to be fair, 42, they won't have known us. They wouldn't have known us.
Right. 40. I'm talking about 43 and 44.
Okay, 44
when the next players who go out to Fiji.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, I would be so amazed if someone said I wanted to play like Shan. Like, I'd be like, wow, that's like such an honor. Like, thank you. Like, I don't even know. Did I leave an impact on the game? I mean, I don't know. I hope so, but I've never thought of it like that. And I never thought that I'd ever be someone's favorite. I mean, I hear a lot of this on socials, right? But like to hear someone say that in an interview, like I want to play like Shan, or I hope to play like Shan, or this was my favorite player, or I'm learning from her game in this way. Like that's really incredible. Or feel like I changed the game in some ways as a woman of color playing, and feeling like that there's like, now I can play like this because she's already done that. Like that's incredible stuff. Like if someone says that to me, like I'll be blown away. I mean, I really would be, just because I haven't thought about that. But yeah, I guess that could happen. But I'm really excited to watch other people play. If I can get back to watching Survivor, I don't know if I can get back into watching Survivor right now. I don't know even if I'd be able to watch 42, but I'll definitely be at some of those watch parties. But I don't know if I could watch 42 just yet. It's so triggering. So I don't know.
So you might not even watch the new season.
I I don't know. I don't know. I think I'd probably I think it would be easier for me to watch 43 and 44 than it would be 42, because 42 is the almost exact same thing. We've seen like the articles, like we know that they film back to back. I don't know that they're going to change anything. And I just, I almost wonder if how I'll feel about seeing the time change and, you know, the different characters and, you know, will they have a come on in guys moment, and will they have a breakout star like Shan, and will there be another anthem? I don't know what's going to happen, but
I don't know about another anthem. That's yours.
But you know, will there be an all black alliance, and will they be successful? You know, I think through all those things.
Well, that's going to be a very interesting question, because I feel like that they have not seen your season. They have not seen Big Brother. They filmed this season in sometime in the summer of 2021. So I do think that we might see a lot of these conversations happen again and maybe play out differently. And you know, it's going to be something you know, we'll keep an eye on for season 42.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I hear, now that I think about it, I hope I hear some references like, oh, I don't want to be the Shan, or I don't want to be the Deshaun, or I don't want to be the Ricard, or let me Ricard him, like, or let me Shan him all the way to the end. You know, I don't want to, I'm worried to hear what they'll think and see, but instead, I mean, this is what it means to be a part of this franchise and to be a part of the Survivor community. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it. So,
yeah, well, I just think that as an outside observer, I think that, you know, I'm sure specifically for women of color, but I really think that all women players, I think especially women that take more of a leadership role and are playing sort of like big games, I think a lot of them are going to think back to your game and the way that it played out, and trying to, you know, avoid, you know, the downfall of like being such a target, and especially like a woman who has like amassed a lot of power in the game. I think that comes with a very specific target where people are trying to take shots at that person.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be like a Parvati, you know, who was a very leader, you know, who people didn't obviously like right away off the bat because she was so headstrong and so dominant and just like had her own power and her own like way to her, right? Obviously, I love Parvati, and I thought I only had a little bit of her in her, but maybe I had a little bit more than I thought. But I hope I can kind of like land in one of those, you know, those spaces in people's minds as a part of this new era. Never thought that that's where I'd be being in season 41, but I guess that kind of is like the trajectory that we're on. And I think, yeah, the transcendent quality here that I hope for, yeah, you know, and I think maybe people of color, we often lock ourselves into the POC or black box too soon. But I do hope that women from all over can look at my game and feel like I can play a strong game and also make relationships and also get far in this game. And I don't have to worry about like, I don't have to feel like I have to pretend like I'm sitting on the beach or I'm a bump on the log. Like I can actually strategize and know that it's okay. Know that there's women that have gone ahead of them that have done the same thing. So yeah, I hope that. I do hope that. Wow, Rob, you give me so much to think about now.
Okay. That's so much that it's that's the, you know, there's always you know, like a one eye like on the future of Survivor and how the people that are playing now are changing it for the people that are listening to this podcast that are going to go and play, you know, in a future season. You never know. Shan, could you talk a little bit about what you're up to post show? That I know that you recently I don't know how much you want to talk about this, that you are shifting up what you're doing outside of the game.
Yeah, I think so I went in the game as a pastor. I still very much was a pastor, and I think I'll always be a pastor at heart, for sure. But I just want to pastor in different ways, and I'm kind of pursuing a little bit more of like film and media and production. And so like at my core, like even as a speaker on platforms, like I'm a storyteller, like that's what I do. And I love telling stories digitally and, you know, verbally in every way, writing and all of that. And so like working on a show right now, and then also just kind of like pursuing a little bit of acting and film and media. And so that's kind of where I'm headed. And
well, you're so good on TikTok.
Thank you.
So, you know, I really that you know, I didn't have an awareness of what you were doing on TikTok before Survivor, but I mean that you really you know, incredible.
Thank you so much. I really like the idea of like short bits of content, but also like longer content as well. So yeah, I think TikTok was where I kind of got started with some of this, but after having a year of like experience with the television and national TV and like being on Survivor, I feel like, yeah, I really like being in front of the camera and telling story. I like being behind the camera as well and like, you know, producing story. And so that's where I'm kind of leaning in. And I'm 34, so I don't know. I feel like I'm getting into the game a little late, but like I'm hopeful, and this is where I'm kind of headed. This is the direction I'm moving in.
Okay. Well, I think you're right on time. I don't think you're getting in too late. I just think that you're such a talented creator. And so it's, very fun to, watch, everything you're putting together. So people should definitely check that out. Shannon, anything else you want to tell people to take a look at that have, come on this journey with us?
Like you mean, so take a look at in terms of what I'm doing next or of the show this season. I mean, yeah, I think also I'm passionate about, health and diet. So I'm going to be starting like a 30-day like Start Green cleanse that I'm inviting people on Instagram to join me. It's going to be longer content on YouTube, but it's just kind of, just something I've been passionate about. It's how I recovered from chemo.
Green as in all papaya?
Green as in papaya, as in like, that's what I should call it.
Cocoa breadish?
Cocoa breadish. All plants, but mind you, that doesn't mean you can't get backed up, clearly.
Okay, yes.
But yeah, going plant-based and like the starter kit to going, basically the starter digital series to going plant-based, or for people that are recovering from therapies, and if you're trying to like reduce inflammation in the body, lose weight, bring down blood pressure and cholesterol. Like on the side, I'm a little bit of a nutritionist, so this is kind of like a little passion of mine. And like I'll be like on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, and just doing that more fully. So that's what's next. So check that stuff out, y'all.
Shan, is there anything you're watching on TV that's a favorite of yours right now?
Okay. I've been going through Orange is the New Black.
Okay.
I've also been going through I'm gonna get dragged for this, I know it, but this is a stupid show called Emily in Paris. It's on Netflix.
Yes.
But I'm watching that right now.
Emily in Paris.
Emily in Paris.
Yes.
With the hard R's, the bonjours. It's just driving me crazy as a Canadian. So yeah, and then Ozark is getting ready to start back on the 25th.
Yes.
So I am ready for that. I'm also watching The Bachelor because and I don't watch it because I'm like a hopeless romantic. I watch it because it's comedy. It's straight up down comedy.
Yes.
And I think Clayton is just, these girls, man, they're just crazy. It's crazy.
They're crazy about him. Yeah. Yeah. I watched the first couple episodes too.
Say that again. Pardon me,
I watched the first couple episodes last week.
Yeah. And what do you think?
I mean, I love when there's villains on The Bachelor. I feel like they keep it interesting. So it's been a good season.
I mean, it's so funny. I think my favorite part about watching The Bachelor is going to Twitter right after and reading all the comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, they have to have a thick skin too.
They do. Reality TV is not for the weak. It's not for the faint of heart. So anybody watching that wants to play Survivor, it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Shan, thank you so much for spending so much time going through all of this, and I really like I'm empathetic to like that sometimes like we're opening wounds and like picking at scabs, and so that's never my intention to try to like bring up like negative things that happen, but I'm always very appreciative to people that go through and like share their story about the season.
No, I appreciate it, Rob. I mean, it's like therapy at this point, but I do think that, like sometimes just looking back, like obviously I'm not beyond growing. I need to grow, definitely do like self-inventory and, all those checks and stuff. And so I'm really grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for your voice in this community, to hear that you're just a learner and just the questions that you ask and how you're not afraid of any of that. I really respect your journalism, and I always love RHAP. I always love it. I tune in and it's great. And so thank you so much for having me. And like, it's been a blast. I mean, yeah, it's been hard, but I played a hard game. It was great. And other times it was polarizing, and other times it was like messy, and but I'm learning. And,
what a ride.
What is it again?
What a ride.
What a ride. What a ride. Yeah, what a ride.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Shan, thank you so much. Everybody else, make sure you subscribe to make sure you catch everything else we're doing. RHAPisthewebsite.com/subscribe. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.